They want to their shape, and they don't want to do it. Awesome.
You saw this on the mirror.
10:20. Yeah.
Well, and my keys. Oh, second.
That's what I did.
Yeah. This time? Yeah. It's, you know what it is?
Oh,
It's being a county commissioner.
Wait, you're in my car. I know. How'd you get here?
I did it. I put the keys in my car,
All the way from.
right? I was looking underneath it. The car was open. I opened the hood. Come from a meeting. Guess what? They were in the ignition.
That's all right. I've left my car running at the park.
Yeah.
Yes. You have a moment. How are you?
You already signed in?
That's called.
Do you still sit at the table?
Yeah. Yeah.
You love work.
You're new, man. You're set. Wrong areas.
That's it.
From yesterday. Yes. He is.
Yes, but there was a payment.
Oh,
Say, if they don't, then they have to hire an attorney.
okay.
I mean, I'm funny. That's it?
That's what I'm gonna pay for it. Physical affairs gonna be. It's gonna be, we're not gonna be. Thank you.
Ready, Chris?
Ready to start? Oh, we should see that.
Not gonna cost the county.
What?
Huh? Penny, what I tell you? It's a delivery of some sort.
It was a nice conversation.
Aggregate out to the third round. Okay, welcome everyone. Is everyone signed? Oh, no, I'm just welcoming everyone, making sure everyone's signed in. And Madam Clerk, if you'll call roll, we'll start the meeting.
Mr. Bernard,
Here.
Mr. Malloy,
Here.
Mr. Hernandez.
Here. Okay. We're going to start with agenda item 1 is to dispense the reading of the minutes, the workshop dated June 26th and the regular meeting dated June 27, 2025. 2, to approve the bills. 3, to accept the donation of $360 from the county auditor to be deposited into the listed fund intended to reimburse the auditor office for expenses for legal services and disbursements provided by Isaac, Wiles, Burkholder, and Miller. 5/1 through 5/31 of 25. 4, to adopt a resolution is necessary to levy a renewal tax in excess of 10 mil limitation to supplement such fund appropriations, same rate as the existing levy pursuant to RC 570524 for purpose of support of children's services in the care of placement of children in Trumbull County at a rate not to exceed 2 mils for each $1 of taxable value for a period of 5 years, and this commencing in 2026, due in 2025. This is a renewal.
Yeah.
You want to speak?
Yeah, I can, yes. Rebecca Smeralia, Trumbull County Children's Services, Director of Fiscal and Planning. We are requesting that the board put our 2.0 mil levy on the ballot this November. We again are asking for it to be a renewal levy. It currently represents about 37% of our agency's funding. This levy, in addition to our 0.8 mil levy, which the taxpayers renewed last year, both of those levies together equal about 50% of our funding. So the levies are vital to our agency's operations. We again like to request for commissioners to put that levy on the ballot this November for renewal.
Okay.
If you have any questions.
Any questions, commissioners? I mean, it's a must renew service.
No problem. That's renewal problem.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you, Commissioner. Gary Schaefer, County Engineer's Office. Number 5 is to authorize our office or authorize the clerk to advertise for sealed bids 2025 road rehab program. That's going to continue the 2 roads that were done last year through Dickox and Hoffman North, so that'll finish through Pickox all the way in, Hoffman North all the way to 88. So, much needed improvements to those roadways. And, hopefully we can get that in this year before the weather comes on. Let's get it out there for the contractor work. Number 6 is to concur with our office to close Perkins Jones Road. That's going to be from Monday, July 14th through September 19th. That is for the sanitary sewer extension to the new Amazon facility. And then they'll come back later in the fall and do the paving, but we felt it was best for safety purposes. It's a deep sewer right along the edge of pavement. We close that through traffic. We're going to maintain local traffic at all times, emergency services, all that stuff. We'll be following that project closely. By having an inspector out there a lot, a few hours a day, and sanitary also watching.
Is this gonna be like one lane at a time, or is it, how's that? Or is it gonna be?
You're gonna be dodging, and for local traffic, to get in and out, it's just gonna depend, but through traffic is gonna be deep toward on the 82 and up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we do not want through traffic. We decided to put it off till after the fair.
All right, good idea. But,
Local traffic, they are getting free sewer and free hookups, right? So.
Absolutely, that's a free sanitary sewer. Now, not the hookups, so that was gonna be their cost, but no front footage, all those costs are being borne by Amazon.
Okay.
No
Nice.
reimbursement.
Yeah, Gary Newbrow, sanitary engineer, they are getting the 6-inch lateral up to their property.
Okay.
On most property extensions, the contractor will use the line in the line, homeowner is responsible to take, pass the right of way line all the way out to the main line. So Amazon did agree to put in the 6-inch lines going to the property. That's very important, especially if you're on the far side of the sewer.
Right.
So they are giving us, but they are not doing the connection from the
So the residents,
There to the
residents will be required to crush their septic systems or whatever and connect,
Yes,
pay all those fees,
Yeah.
permits.
right.
do they do that as a lump or like a one time, or is that assessed on their property tax, or is that, how's that?
No, they just gotta pay for that out.
Paid for out of pocket?
Yes, we have a certified list of drain layers, they contact them, they're licensed to go ahead and do that work.
Yeah, but running those main lines, that's usually per foot. They would have to pay if they, if you had 100 feet of land, it costs you a fortune.
Yeah,
Right.
it would either be a capital charge or an
Assessment.
assessments to pay back the debt on the project, this is a private extension being paid for by Amazon. So there is none of that,
So they're saving
It's
that.
just the connection to the home.
yes.
Now, is there a time frame that they have to connect?
After substantial completion, the normal timing is 6 months after substantial completion. Board of Health will send them letters telling them that deadline, and if they don't connect within the 6 months, if they have a legitimate excuse, they usually give another 6 months waiver.
But by law, since this sewer line runs by their homes, they have to connect them, right?
Yes, for the most part.
Do you know how many homes are affected?
26, I think it was.
Yeah, I had that number a couple of months ago. It's in between 20 and 30 houses.
These houses already have water.
I'm pretty sure they're all.
I can imagine the Amazon plant functioning just on
Well,
one.
maybe-
Yeah, I think they're all. Yes, there are warm water customers.
They've already got the water lines. This is just gonna be the sewer lines to go with it.
Well, are they aware of it? Are the homeowners aware of it?
Yes, they've all gotten letters to that effect. And I have taken quite a few calls in my office, but quite a few.
There's an apartment complex there too, right?
Yes,
On the
yeah.
south side of the road.
Andy Young built an apartment complex back there, and he did extend the sewer to there. So that's where they're extending it from, all of those apartments to the end.
Yeah, originally, the developer had agreed to resurface from Hoagland Blackstone to the end of the project limits for the sanitary project, but now they're gonna resurface the road all the way to Larchmont. So all of Perkins Jones will get resurfaced for this project. And improvements at the Larchmont section. Yeah, quite a good benefit to our office at least. Number 7 then is to concur with our office to grant the right-of-way permits listed. 8 is to concur with our office to grant a special hauling permit, steel coils, 9 is to go with our office with a special annual supplier fee permit listed. And then 10 is to award the lowest responsible bid for Faust Construction. Belmont Avenue Sidewalks Phase 2 project, that's a TAP project. Transportational program project. Of Liberty Townships that we're administering through our LPA program. Done this year. That's gonna go from State Route 304 up to the Giant Eagle along the west side, and also some crosswalks, some curb ramps there, 304, 190.
Okay, thank you, Gary. 11, Gary, do you have anything, information on this? Change
Yeah.
order.
Yeah, item 11, Gary Newbrow, sanitary engineer. This is the final change order for the primary contractor hauler on our Steel Drive project. The project is finished it, people are connecting out there. And once we add up the final quantities, it is a reduction of 20,890.
Okay. Gary, I don't know if we need you again on this. This is from the county engineer.
I really didn't follow that project.
Be Daryl.
Daryl? Daryl?
No.
No?
I mean, normally it would be Daryl Dunnigan Facilities. Normally that would be me, but I did start this project and did follow along with it.
It was started by Bill Hart.
It's just, it's a change order, for the Trumbull County Engineers Office project. DeSelva Construction from Hubbard. Change order number 4 is for an increase of 1726.72, which revises the total contract amount to $1,018,901.72. Change order number 4 is necessary. It was determined that drywall is required in the second floor janitor closet and first floor restroom to accommodate the HVAC ductwork that's listed here. So, yes, sure.
Chair Taylor, Commissioner's Office. This is one of the projects that we borrowed money for.
Okay,
Okay, so
this is not our.
but we'll take that 921 account. We have to move it from the sales tax account to that project one. Just 427
Okay, and the additional comes from where?
sales tax. We have to move it from sales tax over to that
Okay,
project.
commissioners, any?
Well, my question is something with the project cause the additional drywall to be required, or if the contract just misread the contract?
I think it was inspected. Something that, like the HVAC ductwork, there was one room that was closed off apparently that, now correct me if I'm wrong, that they didn't account for. Isn't that what they
That's
said?
what it says. It says that
Phillips.
it's necessary and it was determined that additional drywall was required.
Yeah, there was a small room that was closed off that was not originally accounted for.
Closet, janitor closet, and first floor restroom to accommodate HVAC.
Gary, have you looked at this project at all?
I did Daryl Dunnigan Facilities. I did originally look at this and I thought we were at near completion, but I do remember talking to Michelle from the architect, and she said there was an area that wasn't on the prints. And now that reading this, it's coming across that it needed drywall to be completed.
Okay, so it wasn't
Originally
included.
wasn't on there.
It wasn't on the prints, but in order for the ductwork, it needed to be finished out.
Thank you, Daryl. Okay, moving on, 13, to notify Ohio Department of Liquor Control that a public hearing is not requested on liquor permit applications listed as pilot travel centers in Weathersfield, pilot travel centers. These are all, as it, or in pilot travel in Hubbard Township as listed. And geez, this is a kind of short agenda. Lisa, this is pretty short. What are we gonna do with our spare time?
I'm sure you'll think of something.
Find a way to spend money? How's that?
You'll find something, I'm sure.
We'll be fine. 14, I don't know, Sherry, do you want to, you and I had some discussion on this?
Yeah, yes, we did. Shares with the commissioner's office. We sign agreements with these local municipalities and the public defender's office that we originally contracted with. This is an agreement they sign with us, and they use the public defender's office and we recoup some of the money that we spent. That's how this works. So each one, what we've done this time, because it's been 1.5 years since we've done anything, it has been undetermined how these amounts came to fruition with these agreements, and Lordstown was, they did not like the amount that we have listed. These have been the numbers historically. I do not know, and we have been unable to find out how they came about. However, I did find an old letter that was to a previous board that said, we have prepared resolutions using same amounts as last term. This is from the Public Defender's Office in Columbus. While we have prepared the resolutions, do not take part in the negotiations of the resolutions. If you would like to change terms of the resolutions, including the amounts, please let us know and we can amend the resolutions. So apparently there is, we can negotiate. We can negotiate some of these terms. What I've done, because we're back in the middle of the year, I've changed the term from July 1st of 25 to June 30th, 26. And I've spoken with Columbus. They have no problem with this, as well as Bill Danzo. We can change those dates, and this will actually coordinate with our public defender agreement that we have currently. So it'll have the same contract term. If a municipality chooses to not sign the agreement, they will be responsible for hiring an attorney for any of their local ordinance violations, because the public defender's office will no longer be able to support that for them. They'll have to hire an attorney. So that's about all we can do in reference to that service.
Now, I did discuss, and we had discussion months ago concerning billing and how we bill. And Commissioner Malloy, you and I discussed the fact that the problem was how they came up with the amount. And where do we go to find out how to come up with the amount? You know what I mean?
Well, the issue we had, this came up 2 years ago. And Lordstown said, hey, we got this bill from you. Can you itemize it? What's it for? We couldn't. We went to the public defender's office. We looked at all the files. So we're billing them an amount just because that's what we billed you before. But there's no itemization. There's no breakdown. And I said at that time, we can't bill anybody if we can't tell them what we're billing them for. If we as the county got a bill and a bill was given to Shara, this is for gas or this is for electric, and it's not itemized and it doesn't say what rate, how many hours, we wouldn't pay it as Board of Commissioners. So why would we expect the village of Lordstown, Cortland, Hubbard, Girard, Niles? We can't just give them a blanket bill and say, just because this is what you paid before in the past. There's no formula. And the public defender's office even said, well, there is no breakdown of hours somewhere along the line. There must have been somewhere, but we don't know that we're using the same number of hours, the same amount of service, the same hourly rate. None of that stuff. We could be shorting ourselves a ton of money, or we could be overbilling them a ton of money. So kudos to Lordstown for standing up and saying, we're gladly pay it. Show us an invoice, itemize it. You know, I wouldn't pay any bills for my home unless it's itemized. And I don't think we as big brother government should say, just pay it because that's what you use.
This is not an invoice. This is an agreement. This is an amount they pay to have that agreement. That's what this is for.
But it's gotta be based on service. Why is Lordstown being built more than Cortland? Why is Girard being built more than Lordstown? Why is
They're
Niles?
still looking into it down in Columbus. I talked to.
That's what I mean. They're looking into it for 2 years now and can't give us an answer.
We're not, we literally had money from Warren. We had money from, we're getting supplemented. It is, does not come anywhere near close to paying for anything, believe me. Because we're paying the major contract with public defenders.
I'm just saying, I I don't think it's responsible, fair, or honest to give them a bill that we can't back up.
It's not dishonest.
Well-
They literally use the service.
Bill Danso, prosecutor's office. The first thing I would say is that right now, because of a decision of telling these people don't pay their bills, the county has been funding the indigent defense for local ordinances, city ordinances, village ordinances for now 2 years with no reimbursement. That isn't right. That's not right. That's hurting the county's budget at the expense of the municipalities who are bringing in revenue and fines from those offenses. So we can disagree about amounts and those can be negotiated, but what is not really negotiable is the fact that we are funding things that right now the county really shouldn't be funding. And that's kind of the root of this. And I think that Sheriff's point, and I agree with it, is to get us off center here. When I look at these amounts, I don't know where they came from, but I can almost look at them and say that it does bear some resemblance of probably the proportion of how many city municipal ordinance cases each of these entities generates. So my suggestion to you guys would be, if you don't like the amounts, I don't have any problem with that. That is negotiable. The administrative code section that calls for this agreement simply says to enter into these agreements. It doesn't give amounts, it doesn't give formulas. But I think you're right, it does need to bear some resemblance from for the usage. I totally agree with that. But what I think is not sustainable is not having these, to not bill them, because that is, again, the county's duty is to fund state offense, indigent defense, and that's what we do through the Court of Common Pleas contract. And this contract also contains all of those public defender contract workers who work at all of these municipal courts. That really is supposed to be funding state offenses. Municipal ordinance offenses are not really included. And that's what Cher was saying, that if they don't enter these agreements, then in theory, we should not be having those contract workers at the public defender's office provide any defense for municipal ordinances. Those cities would all need to fund their own at that point through either a separate contract with the public defender or a separate attorney that they're going to hire, or they're going to fund somehow outside of the public defender's office. So my encouragement to you guys is, if you want to, put this off and table this because you don't like the amount, that's certainly your authority to do so. But what I would say is, I don't think it's something that should be put on the back burner for another year or two, because we continue to fund these services probably that the county should not be bearing the cost for.
I'll put it in a Denny Malloy analogy. It's like we all went to dinner and all I had was a salad and a water, and Niles over there had a steak in it, and they added the extra shrimp skewer and a lobster tail. And then the bill comes, we all just split it up, we all pay $30 a piece or whatever. That's not right. So maybe it is better. We push it back to the municipalities and say, you can't tell us how many OAC versus ORC, how many state codes you put it under, how many administrative. So you handle it and deal with the defense yourself. Because right now what we're doing is we're saying, here's how much they're telling us they did. We're splitting it up, but we can't be sure of what they had on their menu or what part of the invoice is theirs.
They will not get served by the public defender's office.
Then that's on them.
It is on them.
Yeah, but we shouldn't be bearing the brunt and just paying these bills when we can't justify what the amounts are either.
Bill.
How do we know we're getting billed fairly from the public defender's office?
Well,
They can't tell us
is-
what it's for per municipality.
Is the county, can the county
Oh, we can tell them.
just come up with a chart? Can we just say, listen, here's what it's gonna cost you, either you're gonna agree with it or disagree with it. That's
And if
our
they
right to
don't-
do that.
Yeah, and if they don't sign on, if they don't sign the agreement, they don't get the service. It's just that simple.
So I understand what Commissioner Malloy is saying.
The city of Warren had
However-
no problem.
Yeah, but City of Warren might be using $70,000 worth of service. And they're like, heck yeah, let Niles and Lordstown pay some
Oh,
more.
Niles uses a lot. And it was negotiated up in the last, I found some background documentation for Gerard. It was negotiated up to $3,800.
So can we take the last 2 to 5 years?
These are the last amounts.
No, I mean, how they used it, the amount of usage.
They do not have, They don't tell us how many cases they've used. a
Oh,
public-
so we don't have that number.
We do not have any documentation from these municipalities. We could be too low. However, I think that if they're using the service, they should be paying something.
I think what we need to come up with what would be a reasonable, usual or customary amount to charge these municipalities to utilize that service. You can't just give it to, we can't give it away for free. We said that.
Well, we have been.
When
So
we
in
have
other
in the
words-
past 2 years.
What I'm hearing, and I don't totally disagree with Commissioner Malloy, but
either.
but
I don't.
I think they're. To me, I'm viewing this as a professional service contract. Like you pay X amount of dollars and you get the service for the year.
Correct.
Okay? Yeah, I think the question is, are they being charged fairly for that professional service contract, right? And so my question to you is, Bill, how do we ever find out what that number should be? It's gonna have to be a negotiated number between them and us, okay? They're always gonna say that they're being charged too much, and we're probably gonna say it's not enough. So I don't know how we come to that agreement. The only thing we know is if they don't go through us, they're gonna probably pay more.
Yes,
Commissioner, or commissioners, can we base it on resident count, size of? I mean, I know that doesn't have any bearing on who claims or who does claims, but you listen, Warren has X amount of residents. Hubbard has X amount of residents. Base a number on that to try to get just some sort of a, you know what I mean, to make it fair.
You can. So the bottom line is, again, the administrative code doesn't give a formula. It just says you have to come up with this thing. So there's a few choices. You could try to address it by population and just assume
That's what I
that
was
that
getting at.
basically based on the population, we would expect this percentage. You could do that.
Right.
You could contact each of the courts that serve these jurisdictions and see if through either a records request or otherwise, if they would give you the number of cases that municipal cases that it would have to be that they generate in those courts. If they could get you a printout or number of that, you could go on that. You could try to do it as a number, how many attorneys from the public defender's office are in each of these courts and do it as a breakdown, basically based on the real expense. But even then, some of those cases are gonna be state, some of them are gonna be local. So that might be difficult. It's always worth reaching out to maybe other counties to find out, or CCAO to find out. And I'm not sure there is any standard. I've found a few contracts from the city of Kent, some other places around the state of Ohio. Virtually none of the contracts say how they came up with a number. The contract simply says, if you want this service, this is the charge. And, so it's not, those aren't particularly helpful when you go into just looking at the other contracts from around the state. But like I said, my take on this isn't, I'm not set on any of the amounts. I don't know either. I think Commissioner Mueller is right on that. But what I will say is I don't think it's good to just not address this. And
Yeah.
right now we've lost a year and a half, 2 years almost maybe of the revenue that really should have been coming back to the county on it. And I don't want to lose anything. I don't think we can at this point.
Well, and that's what I said 2 years ago when this came up was, we're trying to recoup money that we pay for the services. And what I said at that time was don't pay for our services until the public defender's office can tell us how many cases they're fighting or how many cases they're utilized.
Well,
They should know the numbers. They're telling us, they're billing us, and they're not giving us an itemization. But so we're turning around and billing municipalities without an
But
itemization.
they don't have to give they don't technically have to give an itemization. Keep in mind that this is included with that public defender's contract for the year that you guys have already approved. So these contract employees that were part of that budget that you essentially had given the public defender's office, this is all included in those services that you guys have contracted with them for. This is just the share of reimbursement. So you could ask them. I'm not sure how they track their cases, whether they can track
They
municipal
calculate.
versus state.
Well, and we could be overpaying too, because they're getting paid more by the state now, 88% or whatever it is. but we're still billing the same amount we did a couple years ago, and it was only 60-some%.
It's possible.
So we might be overbilling Warren, we might be overbilling Niles, we might be
Yeah.
overbilling Lordstown.
It's
Lordstown
possible.
says,
We have to remember one thing, we pay for a lot of services for a lot of municipalities, we also pay public defenders. Those are also agreed upon. Can you tell me why Newton Falls
That's-
pays
this-
more than the city of, no, it's not, this is not prosecutorial. This is public defender's office, we have two ways, we pay both ends, public defender and the prosecutor. In Newton Falls, we pay more to the city of Newton Falls than we do to the city of Warren for prosecutorial services. Go figure. Does that make sense?
You know, commissioners, I really believe,
That's negotiable.
I
too.
really believe the way to make this fair without trying to do all this, what prosecutors often saying, it's to base it on population and come up with a number.
well, Commissioner, we can base it on population of, in the court, but
They may not utilize it.
Gerard is on the border of Youngstown, their court jurisdiction. They're gonna get a lot more indigent people that are arrested in Gerard that are Youngstown residents. And probably have to deal with a lot of out of county residents that they gotta represent. It's not where you live, it's where you're arrested, you know, and where you're incarcerated. So the areas where there's high crime rate, like I said, on the north side of Youngstown border, Hubbard and Gerard are gonna absorb a heck of a lot more people, probably that are indigent from the north side of Youngstown than they would a Cortland or a McDonald. So I don't think that's a fair judge either. They're dealing with a lot more probably indigent cases than others would. In Lordstown, when we talked to them, they said that OAC, they looked at it, they can only find when they did a handful of them. That's what they said. We can only justify this, which has got to be less than everybody, but we're paying more than 5 other municipalities. Why? And we couldn't tell them why. That's where the
You can
unfairness came in.
negotiate, well, you can renegotiate with them. I think we still need to, it's my recommendation to send out all these agreements. If they don't like the cost, then bring it back to the table and negotiate it. Otherwise, they hire an attorney and they don't get the use. That's all.
I mean, if you look at some of these numbers, first of all, McDonald and Hubbard, $500. I mean, really, you could have. I mean, that you could eat that up in a New York minute. You know what I mean? It's
Well,
just not making sense.
It doesn't.
So is anybody other than Lordstown questioning these rates?
No,
So we send, well,
But that's basically just saying, if you got a good counsel or you got a fiscal hawk that's gonna defend you, if you speak up, we'll back off you, like a bully thing.
that's not.
The bullies that fight
Wait a
back,
second.
let's go to the weaker one, we'll pick on the next. That's not right.
Somehow these rates came about, and I don't think that everybody else was just like, I don't look at it as a bad thing. They're not, they didn't just make these numbers up. Somewhere along the way, they came about. There's documentation. This is from 18, this Cornely gentleman, he sent a letter to the commissioners then and said, negotiate the amounts. So negotiate the amounts.
And which we never did, past.
Well, there's
never
only-
did.
There's only one, because they agreed with it, they sent the money in. They signed the agreement, they put a resolution together and literally signed it and sent in it with a check.
Maybe I can make a call to Mahoney County or some of the other counties.
They don't
and see
have
how
it,
they-
we've done all that homework. We have all, including
have-
downstairs in the auditors. Now, some of them do not. They don't contract with public defenders like that. Numerous reasons why other counties do not do things. They don't necessarily do them the way we do it. But what's frustrating is just negotiate it. I mean, we've gone and didn't recoup anything if they're using it. If they're not using it, show us you're not using it and negotiate a lower rate. They should have to do their homework.
I
too.
agree, but I just think that's bad government that, you know, you're guilty till you prove you're innocent. You know, I don't think that's the right way. I think
Well, I don't look at it that.
if we're being billed, we should see what we're being billed for. If we're billing, we should show them what we're billing them. That's all.
If we could get that information. And evidently,
We
It's
have,
gotta be there
we have
somewhere.
tried for a year and a half to get all this. The last time
Right.
when you said, we're gonna just put the kibosh on it.
And that's where I said,
Everybody's
put
been.
it back on Laura and their department and make, until they
We
get
have.
itemized.
They don't really, they're not looking out for us. They're getting a
I get
paycheck
that.
from us.
I get that. And if they stop getting a paycheck from us, then maybe they'll itemize it to us.
contract.
They're the ones that
Yeah,
are
I
fighting.
mean, we're on for a year.
We're on, is what we're saying, so,
Cost ticking.
yeah, the process, so the contract has already been signed, I heard Bill say that loud and clear.
Mr. Danza, what do you recommend?
Well, again, I think that the important thing is that the county does something, and what I don't want
to mean that we send them a bill now?
sure.
It's
and-
an, it's an agreement. We don't send them an invoice. We send-
in my opinion, you have a couple choices if you want to just get off center. You could just send them an agreement at these rates and let them come back to you, like Sheriff said, you could do that. You could absolutely, if you want to do your homework before then, you could absolutely reach out to, Warren Municipal Court, Niles Municipal Court, Central District for Cortland, Girard, Court for Girard. Just reach out to all the courts and see if they run a report. And then maybe proportionally look at the city invoices and kind of do it proportional. It's gonna take a little bit more time. And my recollection, there was one court that was having a hard time in particular getting that information. So I don't know how successful that would be, how quick that would be. But again, I think the important thing is just to not have this get lost in the shuffle again, because again, the county should be being reimbursed to some degree for this. And, like I said, the amounts, I don't disagree with Commissioner Malloy at all. The amounts, we don't know where they came from.
And we don't know whether we'll ever find out.
Right, and at this point, I suspect we won't find out, so I think we need to probably recreate it, kind of ourselves now, figure it out now.
Well, I believe something's telling me that we need to base this on, and I know
That's gonna take
Commissioner's gonna say, but population.
But that's gonna take.
By a
time.
resident.
We're
Commissioner
already-
Wood's not wrong. You can't
Listen,
do
we're
it.
already not getting paid for a year and
You
a half.
can't base it on population?
No.
Well, you don't know what percent of that is.
The prosecutor just said you could.
You could,
But it's not gonna be fair enough.
Yeah, Warren's gonna pay a heck of a lot less, we based on population, because we know
Commissioner
Warren
Malloy
deals with a heck of a lot
correct.
more.
Well, look at
Indigent
Warren.
cases than any.
Yeah, look
They
at
have
Warren's
no
at
problem paying that.
50 grand.
Commissioners,
I
why
mean,
don't you
they're
try to
paying
have them
bulk of
track what they're doing now? So we're already in a contract. They should, if we say, if the Board of Commissioners says, okay,
If they wanna
if you
negotiate,
wanna negotiate it, start tracking now, every month, we wanna report how many indigent, oh my goodness, sorry. Defense
For
cases
local,
you represented for your
affordable
local
entities.
entities. And that's it. I mean, they have to quantify too. I think everybody has to share a piece of the pie here. That's the truth.
That's
Everybody,
what should have been done from day one.
everybody should be tracking.
there were many people involved in that trying to track it.
my suspicion is that probably many years ago, that is how these numbers were initially generated. I will say that, because again, just my off the cuff look at it, I think that this probably is at least somewhat proportional in terms of how many cases each of these generate, for example, I'm not sure, when you see the Village of McDonald, City of Cortland, City of Hubbard at 500, I'm not sure how many cases they actually charge as municipal ordinance cases, Warren, I know does, fair number. Niles, I believe, does a fair number. Lordstown, I honestly don't know about Lordstown. I'm not sure what their case numbers are there. But I think, again, I think that probably is as the most equitable way to look at it. It's probably based on those case numbers, but we don't have that information at this point to do it,
How long have these numbers been?
In
How long-
18, they negotiated it out for the city of Girard, at 8, or maybe it was 21.
That's the only one.
That's the
So
only
these,
one.
what are these based on?
That I
20
don't-
years ago? I mean,
I don't
look
know.
what it costs with the rate of inflation, with everything else, costs have gone up. These numbers from back then add another 50%. Really, when you think about it, if these numbers were created back in
Sure.
2007,
Makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, 500 in 2007.
Then,
what is-
then you gotta add the factor of if the state's paying a higher percentage of it,
Well, they're
that
paying-
skews it also.
Well, I don't know what it cost back then, but I guarantee you it wasn't what it costs us now. I know the state's kicking in 88%.
so the cost definitely has gone.
It's risen.
I'm just, if we were to be sued by any of these municipalities that said,
It-
you're
it's-
billing us too much, how could we back it up even?
I do have to point out, I don't think you'd get sued on that, because again, this isn't,
They agreed to it.
this is a contract proposal that you're sending. This isn't it's not an invoice that you're saying pay this or else. It's an optional, it really is an optional contract that they can choose to sign or not sign. So, I mean, I think the risk of getting sued, I'm not worried about. I think they could question the amount though, like they've done. I think that's certainly a possibility. But again, that's where I think as a county, we've got to decide, are we going to do the deep dive into these numbers right now? Are we gonna do a temporary solution? That's kind of up to you guys, how you view that, how you want to do it.
So if they don't sign the agreement, the alternative is they don't have representation.
Correct. That's from Columbus. I spoke to Alice Hill yesterday. That is directly from their office. That if they do not sign on, then they do not get the use of the public defender's office.
Yeah.
It's that
Isn't that even in Miranda? You have a right to an attorney if you can't afford one to be appointed to you?
They have to pay for it.
They have to pay for
The
it.
city, the cities that you're looking.
They just don't
at
get it for free. That's all.
These contracts, once they're done, do have to be submitted and approved by the state public defender's office. So that's why this is a part of a whole big system that the state operates in the public defender's office. The other solution, I think, is for them to either contract this, the municipalities probably could contract
Yeah,
separately
yeah.
with the public
Yeah.
defender or hire their own court-appointed counsel for these cases. It's usually not worth that for them to do, to be honest, because these attorneys are already there. They're already able to do this as long as they do it. So as long as the amounts are, within the realm they're comfortable with, they probably sign the contract. But, that's where, again, what are the amounts? We come back to that same question.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at any professional services, our professional services range anywhere from $125 an hour per attorney to $250 an hour per attorney. So commissioners, you're looking at $500 for one. I mean, so
Here,
it would be very who of these cities, I would think that I mean, they're getting an hour of attorney paid for.
If they, like city Hubbard may never charge anybody under their administrative code.
May never, but I don't know. You guys.
I don't know.
Lordstown says they don't. And then we're billing them anyway.
But then that's no, we're not billing them. They are signing an agreement and paying that cost. If they choose not to, they don't have to. They don't have to sign an agreement. Matter of fact, Lordstown is the only one that didn't sign the agreement, and that's fine. They can hire their own attorney. It's very simple.
I just think we're not being very good government if we do that. That's all. It's my opinion worth until it, like I said, if it was us getting an
They went
agreement, a
so
contract, and they
correct.
said, just sign it, here's your amount, and couldn't back it up. I would kick it back. We would vote no.
Fair enough. No, I don't disagree with you. What I do, they're getting the use of the service and they've gotten it for free under the county. And that's not fair when we even pay for a prosecutor in some of these municipalities. We pay 4 to be exact.
When's the last time Village of Lordstown paid this amount?
It's been a couple of years.
But they did pay this amount.
Oh, well, I don't know when the last time they paid it, but
They
it's
were
been a couple of
paying.
years that they didn't sign the
All
agreement.
these
No problem.
municipalities were paying.
were they under contract and then didn't pay?
No, they didn't sign the agreement. They just didn't sign the agreement.
So then why were they getting service then?
I don't know that they have or they haven't. We really
That
didn't
came
know,
up last
we didn't notify, Trumbull County did not notify the public defender's office that we didn't get the agreement. Initially, before I took this over, I didn't know that Lordstown didn't send the agreement. They haven't sent it for about 2 years.
I just think that's when they contested it. We threw it back in. Lauren
They called Paul.
Or case and said,
Mhm.
justify it to us. They tried.
We
Took
have.
about 6 months and came back and said, well, we can't figure all these figures out. We don't know.
But like
That's
Sheriff-
not the answer.
Commissioner, like Sheriff said, they had a choice, either pay it or get out. and
It's
do your
either
own thing.
They
You know?
can do their own.
Because we don't have a
We're
problem.
holding them hostage.
I mean, we don't have a problem.
No, we don't. We have no agreements. We have not had one agreement for a year and a half now.
And I
And
think,
remember, these are based on,
But no one should be got and given a service that.
well, and I think that was the intent of this, to try to at least
Yeah.
start that process again, because, it is an important service and it needs to be provided somehow. So at least something like this would get us back on track.
So this doesn't start till July 1st today.
Yeah.
And all these people already paid it before it even started. All paid in advance. Warren already paid their bill.
Nobody's
No,
paying. In a year and a half.
Okay, so nobody's under contract now. So all these municipalities can tell us, No,
Right.
we're not paying until you give us an itemized bill if they wanted to.
No, they could say, then they can't use the service,
Right.
and then they can figure out the local ordinances, that's what can
And
happen.
that's what I mean,
You
if
choose
none
to
of them
do that.
do, then they're gonna have to figure it out or be on their own.
Because I will call the public defender's office and they do not get to use the public defender's office
So then we don't have a public defender's office in this county and they can, they'll all have to deal on their own, and we're out of it.
for the
And
municipality.
then we're not losing anyone, for
Well,
sure.
I understand what you're saying, but the ones that wanna pay it, why not let them pay it?
That's
That-
where I,
that's, I mean, if the city of Warren wants to pay 50,000 and until we find out that's is that a reasonable rate or isn't it? You know, should they be paying 70 or should they be paying 40? Why not just send them the contract and say, here, from right now, you're willing to pay this amount and then we'll dig into it and find out.
Well, that's not a bad suggestion either. Maybe one thing to do and maybe it'd be worth getting in touch with some of these municipalities and saying, look, we recognize that this is something we need to look at, but we need to try to solve this problem now. Can we all come to an agreement on an amount that would get us through at least this year?
Right.
So that we can really dig into this for next year with their help even.
Right.
You know, that's something that you could
you
choose
would
to.
have to change the agreement dates then.
Well, what I'm saying is like, but maybe keep these dates and tell all of these municipalities, this is kind of a 1 year stopgap
Gotcha.
until next July, when
And they've
hopefully
already
we've got
been
all the
paying that, or
information.
they've agreed to that.
You know, I don't know if that's something even Lord's maybe would be receptive to, knowing that, hey, we recognize we've got to get something done now to kind of solve this problem for this
Right.
year.
Right.
But that buys us a year to hopefully really get a better foundation. I don't know.
Could you put it into the agreement, so to speak, 'cause it's not a contract, it's an agreement, that they would have to, monitor over the next year, over this 1 year bridge gap that they
That
quantify how
we have to, that has to get approved through the public defender's office. for
Yeah,
the
we'd have to
agreement.
see if they were okay with that, because again, these do have to be approved by the
True, yeah.
state, so.
But really, there is no way to know unless somebody starts to.
We can,
Well-
we can actually put it in a letter, when we send these agreements out, we can say, we wish to renegotiate these amounts next year. However, we would like to know how many,
Or an idea,
public
maybe.
defenders, yeah, how many.
Let's go back to the basics of it though. If the public defender is billing us for services, how can they not tell us what
But
they're
they're
billing?
not,
These are the
again, they're not,
municipalities.
they're not,
They're not us.
yeah, they're not billing for services.
They're not.
When
Well-
you guys,
We're paying a bill, you're saying all we're doing is getting reimbursed?
no, but you're paying a bill, but not for, you're not getting an itemized bill either.
Right?
When you guys approved the contract for the public defender's office, you approved the, whatever it was, $3.98 million budget for them.
Correct.
That is an overall,
It's an umbrella.
here it is for all of the services that we'll provide throughout the year.
Okay.
It's not, there is no itemization is in terms of, in fact, I think the only thing in there is a limit on the number of cases that they can provide service for. There's no count of cases, there's no tracking of.
So the
cases.
state just comes up with a random number and throws it on there without any backing in fact or
Well, I
logging.
don't wanna comment on that, but, you know, I don't know. But the fact is, what they have come to the conclusion, for example, I'll just, use a for example. The public defender's office has determined that through whatever calculations that they do, that the central and eastern district county court need 4 public defenders, okay? You pay X amount of dollars per public defender, and that's just, they're in those courts handling all of the cases. City ordinance and state, because they're gonna do everything, presuming that this is gonna happen. You're not paying, this many dollars for a state offense, this many dollars for another offense. They're not tracking that. You just approved that amount to say, you've asked for 4 lawyers. We think 4 lawyers is what you need. Here's your contract. Go for it. There's no other per case tracking on their part, because that's not viewed probably as their responsibility. Honestly, I think the better way to find case numbers probably would be through the clerk of courts in those courts. I would think that maybe there's a way through the software, because I know they all have separate software for the court. Is there a way to run a report on the number of state offenses versus city
Yeah.
offenses?
And then why is Newton Falls not in here? Why is like Eastern District or Central District, the court itself, why are they going by a city or a municipality.
The Newton Falls one, I can't explain. I have no idea.
You know, where's Farmington
But-
Village, where's,
My assumption is, and this is an assumption, why Farmington, some of like
Are they getting
Yankee
free?
Lake or, you know, some of those smaller villages, they probably don't have municipal criminal citations under their documentation, their municipal charters or documentation.
so is this like Mayor's Court in McDonald, Mayor's Court in Cortland?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know what offenses they have coming through that
Mayor's Court in Hubbard, that's what it seems like these are.
it could be. I mean, I don't know. I can't answer the why is Central and Eastern not on here because they contain a lot of jurisdictions that are not municipalities. So, you know, for example, Bezetta Township can't charge municipal offenses. They're a township. So the city of Cortland would report the Central District, but it's really the city of Cortland that's paying for those ordinances
Yeah.
violated.
Right, but if it was under that would it even go to Campbell's Court? Or would that go to Mayor's Court?
I don't think that Mayor's Court, this is where I'm getting a little out of my league into the criminal area here, but I don't think Mayor's Court, you're entitled to counsel because there's no risk of incarceration, if I
I
understand.
think you might be right.
I don't
about that.
know, again, I'm treading outside my territory there, but
It
Uh,
seems I read that somewhere.
I think that this would be for any case that's filed in the Central District Court, for example, for Cortland.
Also, what do we wanna do with it? We wanna table it, we wanna.
I just think we're picking a number and seeing if it sticks. I just don't think that's fair, right?
Well, I
But
mean, what
that's
do you wanna
my
do?
2 cents.
You wanna build them or you don't wanna build them?
We're sending an agreement. We're not billing.
Go outstanding, that's what I meant, you know, you don't
If
wanna
they
spend
fix
an
it,
agreement with anybody at this point in
I don't
time,
think it's fair.
so you don't wanna collect any money at all.
I don't think it's
No, we're
fair
billing
to just
them.
Well,
see what they voluntarily want to pay. I think we need to have some backing in fact.
Then they need to provide it. They need to provide it. They're the ones who filed the charges. They need to provide
If we
it.
want be a piece of this, then they should provide the
Then I
facts
think,
to
I
us
think
and
the
what it
personal
is.
legal services should also be looked at. All of this stuff should be looked at.
well, so if the city of Warren is willing to pay 50,000, you don't wanna send them a statement saying agreement for them to go into this. I mean, if they're willing to pay it, why not send it to them?
I think the city of Warren is probably getting a pretty good deal with this figure.
I'll tell you,
Well, yeah, but if we collect 50, that's better than collecting nothing, until we can figure it out. Yeah.
I believe they're too low. I believe
Well, they
these
might
numbers are
be,
too low.
But how long is it gonna take?
Let
us
alone
to
they didn't pay
justify
for the
that?
past 2
They
years.
need to give us, they need
These
to
are
give us
too low.
data.
Well, how long are we gonna give them to tell us?
Throughout the year, they can give it to us throughout the year. If they choose not to sign the agreement, they don't sign the agreement and they don't
Say,
serve
why not
us.
send in the agreement, 50,000,
Oh, absolutely.
it
That's
pay
their
us.
recommendation.
and then get the numbers in here and see whether we can raise it, lower it.
Right.
They must
At
think
this
it's,
juncture.
they must think
very
it's a pretty good deal if they wanna pay us 50,000.
Or we
We do
vote
a
on
lot
this.
of municipal ordinances in the city of Warren. A
We
lot of
vote
people
on this.
charge the city in city jail compared to our regular jail.
We vote on this. And if we find that they're lower, then we credit them. If we find they're higher, then we renegotiate with them.
Well, we'd have to see if the public defender state would allow us to have those kind of things in the contract to do that. And if not, that's what I was maybe suggesting, if you want us, if you kind of wanted to consider maybe a 1 year interim total. And again, if Lordstown seems to be the sticking point, maybe they're gonna say, look, we don't think 2150 a year is appropriate. We think we should be at 1,000, you know, if they can maybe convince you guys of that, I don't know. Because again, you're right, we don't really know where these initial amounts came from, but my suspicion is a lot of these courts probably would rather, and a lot of these municipalities probably would rather have this contract than not have it, because it makes it easier on them. They don't have to worry about court appointments. They don't have to worry about the state contract on their own, the reimbursements on their own. They just know that these attorneys show up in our court every day and do the work, and it's hands off for us. So I don't want you guys to think I'm pushing for these amounts in particular. I think that is open for review and negotiation. But I just don't know if maybe it's worth having at least an initial talk with some of these municipalities to say, hey, look, is there something we could agree with to get through this year? While we do a bigger look at this for next year, that way they're getting services. You guys can spend your time focusing on the totals maybe for next year rather than, worrying about how all these numbers came about this year while we're in a gray area as far as services go, just something to think about.
But that's how we get this off, off base, that we send them the agreement, they either sign it or they
Or
don't
they
sign
don't,
it.
yeah, they could say, I'm not signing
And the
this.
Port Town calls back and agree with that amount, but then you say, okay, what amount
Yeah, you can do that.
do you agree with? And they say, well, this, and if it's too low, then we say, well, you know what, let's find out, but at least we have something in the works.
Sure, you could do that way if you want to.
I mean, I don't know how, unless we sit here and just not bill anybody, and then now we're gonna be 2 years and 2.5 years that we don't collect any money. And until we can find out how
I
much.
think they all
use it.
need to be looked at, even the prosecutorial services that we pay these 4 cities for, we pay them.
Yeah, I mean, we just want to be treated fair, and we want to treat them
Correct.
fair.
Correct.
That's all we want.
Sure.
And I
We
agree.
wanna
with-
base it in fact.
And nobody knows how we base that, but at least we have some numbers that they used to pay, so why not send them that, and then we'll work from this.
Right, this is historical
Yeah.
data.
Right, yeah, this isn't our numbers, these are
No,
numbers that they.
I
paid in
didn't
the
pull these
past.
out.
Right, so they paid these in the past, hopefully they'll pay it again until we can look into it and see where everybody should be.
We'll have them track the
Yeah.
cases that they use. They can do that.
And if we trust that passports did it correctly 5, 10, 20 years ago,
Well,
That's not fair. You can't-
just saying,
oh.
if there's nothing in writing that shows how they did it.
nothing in writing on a lot of things.
Are we voting on this or what are we doing?
I mean, I think we ought to send it to them and give them the options whether to sign it or not sign it. It's just something that we've had in the past, and let's see where they're at. And I'm not against working with Georgetown. I mean, if they're saying
No.
that's too much,
Not at all.
and it's like, okay, what's your number?
Right, and like Bill said, until we come
But
up
for
with,
$500, I mean, I don't see Hubbard or some of these places say, look, I don't want to pay $500. I think they can do that.
Well, then let's send them a letter, they can agree, they can opt out and get billed nothing, and they're on their own, or they can give us an amount that's fair and submit it back to us by a certain date, and then we put them all together and vote then.
They have to sign the agreement. I don't know how that's gonna work. Yeah, we have to go through the public defender's office. It's pretty much their agreement set up.
I mean, if they don't sign it, Commissioner, then they're almost saying that, then I object to it. Then we can say why and then try to work that out, right?
Yeah, I think you could do that. That way, if, say 4 of them right off the bat sign the agreement, we send those for approval to the public defender.
Right.
And if a couple of them maybe want to talk or, maybe not move as quickly, then we'll send those in as they come in if we can reach them. Maybe that's an option. I think that's an option.
They come up with the resolutions on their own through their states, because they send their resolution along with the agreement where they approved it.
I mean, I don't know what else to do at this point. That's probably the fairest way.
So should we appoint something then between maybe a representative of the prosecutor's office, representative of ours, to, someone's gonna track this over the next year, if we're gonna do better next year, and we're gonna have these figures,
They have to
we're
track.
just gonna monitor and coach them and organize, so they all track it the same way. And give it to us the way we want it.
If Warren should be paying 7 and they're only paying 50, they're not gonna tell us they should be paying 7, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I think, again, to me, I think that the courts are in the best position to get this data. That's my opinion on it.
They can submit it to me
They
monthly.
they should be able to provide a report, I think. Again, I'm not an expert on their court software, what reports it can run, but I would think it could give a list of city ordinance offenses that were charged, to give you numbers.
That utilize the public
That
defender's office.
should be, if nothing else, if a public records request should be able to get that kind of information. So I think that, I'm not sure, perhaps the public defender's office could track it, but I think the courts are in the best position to get that information.
I think we should move forward and then like Commissioner, like you had mentioned, we understand what Commissioner Molloy is saying. And then we work with them.
We work with them. that's
Yeah,
all.
it's either gonna be, they're gonna pay more, or they're gonna pay less, or they're gonna opt out. Right?
And I think it's fair to tell everybody that this is something that you are going to spend time this year
Working.
working on, so that you can come up with a quantifiable formula maybe.
That's what I'm saying here. We're just gonna work on it. Should we have a task force to look at it? Should we have a body of people that monitor it to look at it?
Commissioner Malloy. I would vote for that.
You know, 2 years ago, we said, we need to see the figures.
Yeah,
Laura said, "Hey, I don't have it." No one did anything with it. and here
Yes,
we
they
go
did.
again.
Yes, they did.
Well, we didn't
There's
have
a
an
whole
answer.
file folder from Christy Sisteric on this. We have talked to Laura numerous times. I have many emails. Yes, we did.
But the numbers aren't in there, how we came to this.
No one can seem to tell us how they came up with those numbers. But somewhere along the way, they came up.
They had to.
And the city of Warren never had a problem paying that.
Like I said, with the number of OAC cases they do, they probably, I see why they would have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Well, you wanna put it on and pass it and then we go from there. I mean, I don't know what else to do.
I mean, I don't wanna vote on it as it sits right there, because we know right away, Lordstown says, no, that number, they're not paying, they don't.
But they just won't sign the agreement.
It's simple. And then we can
I
revamp.
mean, there's no agreement now, so they don't sign it. And then if we come to an agreement, then they can always sign it.
I will talk to them. I will absolutely call them and follow up with an email and let them know this is what we're
Do
doing.
we have any kind of number where they wanna be?
No, they did not state where they wanted to be. They just thought that number was too high. According to Paula's note,
We could leave it out except for them then.
Well, that's
Because the only
Newton
one
Falls Municipal Court, so maybe Newton Falls the clerk there could get a number of cases just for Lordstown.
yes.
That's a possibility. And that way you guys would have information to know. And if it is 2 or 3 cases a year, then maybe you know that, hey, we're
It should
willing
be
to
at
back down
500,
off
yeah.
this number, you know? If you find out it's 1,000 cases a year, which it won't be, but
No,
then maybe you know where you're at on that. That's something that if you limit it to even just for now, checking on that one municipality,
Right.
maybe they could get that information.
I think that they did try to do that.
Okay.
And still there was nothing from them.
Yeah.
Wanna hold it for a week? I mean, another week isn't gonna matter. We haven't been.
I mean, I would hold for a week and check with each municipality at
let's
the
see
time
what-
frame.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's see if anyone else has a beef with the
We're
price.
not getting anything anyway, so.
But bottom line is, we still may be underselling ourselves, we still may be getting. ripped
Well,
off.
we probably won't get those answers in a week anyway, but at least we can get an answer maybe for Lordstown.
And perhaps why Newton Falls was not on the list. I'm not sure whether they have, maybe they do their own out
We
there with
paid them-
court appointments.
We paid them an exorbitant amount of money for this to do.
That's another discussion for another day.
Sure is.
Okay, so then we're tabled.
So much for the short
Is
meeting.
this what we're doing? Yeah, that incorporated about 30 agenda items.
No, right now we're collecting nothing.
Yep,
Huh?
whatever.
Right now, we're collecting nothing.
Well, I mean, let's give it another week. Oh, what's another, I mean, we've gone all this time. Let's try to iron out Lordstown and go from there. 7 days.
All right, commissioners. That's all the agenda items we have. We do have CCAO here. Do we have anyone else here that is looking? Nick, you came back from Washington, everything's good?
Nick Hogg from Connecticut Planning Commission. We did have a successful flight with the DC fly-in with the regional chamber. We were very well represented as the Mahoning Valley. We did get to ask all of our congressional representation and our senatorial representations questions about what's going on in the bill. We do still have some concerns about the community development block grant not being funded. But the comment to me when I asked both the congressman and senator that question is they're not getting rid of the program. They're just not looking at funding it, and hopefully in the future it will come back. But that's hopes aren't gonna keep the county running.
What's the
So
difference if they're not getting rid of it and they're not funding it? Needing the money.
that was their direction, or that was their response. And they did talk about several other topics, some of it very positive. But I think, myself and Director Green have brought up the community development block grant at home not being funded. that was a point of concern for myself. And, you know, that goes to our sanitary engineer with residential public infrastructure grants, our county engineer with critical infrastructure grants. The cities, the municipalities, we help with downtown revitalization grants, neighborhood revitalization grants, our nonprofits that you have awarded allocation funds to. You know, it's a lot of money that we're not gonna have, and it doesn't seem like it's a priority for them to be put in this spending budget. But outside of that, I do want to recognize, I see the commissioners and the fair board had a ribbon cutting for the 4-H building. Bob Copeland did a fantastic job. I wanted to add on to that article that he wrote and make sure that we recognize Director Green, Kimberly Vaughn, and Emily Moran of our office, who have been working with the fair board since 2021. They got Ohio Department of Development funds to help them remove the old 4-H building. And they assisted the fair board with not only that ARPA request, but those their other 4 projects that were going on at the fair. Our office worked extensively with them to make sure that they got all their requests, their contract, and the bidding done in accordance with the guidelines from our attorney, Tanya Brown. So I just want to make sure we give the planning commission staff a shout out for all their hard work in getting that accomplished. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Brandon, did you get that? Okay, and we want to thank the planning commission because we know they did a lot of work, and you know, even the Commissioner Bernard and I didn't have the opportunity, but we are seeing, you know, the fruit come from, you know, what had been done with all the ARPA and, you know, the planning commission being you know, doing the due diligence for making these things happen. Commissioners, any questions for Nick? No? Casey, did you have something?
Nope.
Nothing?
Nope.
Mike?
I've got a couple of things.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right. Friday, you.
My name
I'm
for,
sorry, Mike Sal, Trumbull County Transit Administrator. Friday, you tabled the agenda item for sunset transportation. So my question is, where are we at for that? And the other question is, regarding what's the questions for that? I have answers for that. So those are my 2 things I want to bring.
well, we had discussed, I think the issue was, Commissioner Maloney, you brought up that we were discussing the fact that there were to be 4 transportation services.
One less than when we had budgeted, and now 1 is gone. And were we going further down the list, or the top 3 are going to expect it to absorb the bulk of them? And is that, you know, the fairness of that?
And Mike had mentioned that they can do that, they can absorb that. But I personally don't have any further info. I don't know if you have any, or Commissioner.
Well, my comment to the prosecutor would be, what they're saying is, I believe that they want to open it up now to the next bidder down. Legally, can we do that once we agree to a contract, or how does that work?
You know, generally, once the bid is awarded, it's awarded, and those are the people who have been awarded to get the money, the contract. Going down the list, I think, is a little bit risky because those people were not awarded the contract to begin with. And, you know, especially when you have existing contracts with people that were awarded that apparently have the capacity to perform that service. This is a little bit of an odd situation in that you've awarded multiple contracts, but I just, I think we have to want to be a little bit cautious with awarding contracts after the fact that were not awarded when this was originally bid out. That's my, at least off the cuff, without having time to really dig in to research it. I think that's a little bit concerning.
Also,
I agree.
Like Trump County Transit Minister, okay. I've already talked to the vendors. I've got a meeting set up for July 9th at 1 p.m. It's not a public meeting. It's just with, if one of the commissioners want to come to it, you're more welcome to, of course. but it's just gonna be the vendors and myself and Diane, and that's stuff. That's what was invited to this meeting. I've already talked to the commissioners, Dave Merkin, I've already talked to the vendors, Dave Merkin is here, to speak for himself. But I know Dave said he's willing to buy more vehicles, he's willing to hire more people. Jim Galucci also said that, so that's what this meeting's for, is to figure out. There's actually 870 average from Garland that we've done, that he's done for the last 18 months.
Including JFS.
No, JFS completely separate. I have no
Why
idea.
wouldn't John Gargano be in your meeting also? Because he's gonna have a need too, which is gonna create.
Well, his,
His
no,
department.
hang on.
It's separate.
Now, his is separate, and the thing is, his is a separate contract. His contract's up as of October 1st.
Okay,
So
so
he's
he's
gonna
gonna
go out for
all the way
bid.
to the end.
Right, yeah. Garland's going on that. That's why they're doing what they're
Right,
doing.
it's not too worried. Theirs is NET transportation, which is completely different, and then.
Alex.
I'm sorry, Alex DiVincenzi, Bush Human Resources Department, Job and Family Services, the NET transportation system is completely different and bid out different and all of
Yeah.
that, from separated from the senior and disabled
Right.
transit systems.
So,
Including the wheelchair and ambulatory and all of that, that there's been,
so he's gonna have to worry about his next bid to make sure that he can get enough vendors. He's good until the end, because they're gonna continue with the contract. But I know Dave Merkin is here. He wants to say something about.
Yeah, I just want to say that,
State your name.
I'm sorry, Dave Merkin from Liberty Township Comfort Caravan. That Mike's saying that number of 870 trips a month. There is 4 providers now. We had 5 until Garwin withdrew. Since this program started, we've always had 4. So we're not at any different than where we've been, except for the last 3 months. 870 trips a month. If you divide it between the remaining 4, comes down to about 10 trips a day. 5 round trips a day, actually. It's nothing. It's very easily absorbed. I'm doing over 200 trips a day totally. To put 5 more trips in for me or for, I did have a long conversation with Jim Galucci from USA Taxi. He's more than happy to do it. I also talked to Anthony, who is the new operator of Garwin. And I basically told him that whenever he wants to stop, if you know, as long as he's cleared through you guys, we can start taking those trips immediately. It's not a big deal. It's an easy transition. We never had 5 before. My opinion is we didn't need 5, but even with 4 now, we're back to where we've always been. I have made Garwin, I've had conversations again with Anthony to buy his vehicles and to hire his people. So I don't see that there is any problem anywhere to just continue on. If Mr. Danza is saying that it could be a problem contractually, then we don't need to deal with that. We're ready to move forward. I could move forward tomorrow and take over Garwin's trips. That's not an issue whatsoever.
Yeah,
Well, so we used to have 5 and then we,
right, we had 5, what?
for 3 months, always had 4 in
Always
the
had
past.
Had 4.
You've always had 4. What it is, you've got 3 in this area, and then you have Country Neighbor that's up by Ashtabula, and they cover the northern tier. So that's why a lot of times we say 3, because there's always been 3 in this area. But Sunset covers both, so that's why we got 4 in this, we have 4 in this area now, with Country Neighbor still in the north. So we're
Well-
still at the 4 that we've always had.
I think the whole key is the prosecutor's office. I think if I'm reading what you're saying is we can't do it. We need to stay within the bounds of the contract and spread it out to those who already are there, right? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, and again, this is sort of off the cuff without having looked at this. You know, what I would say is if the commissioners were adamant that they really wanted to explore whether or not we could award another contract based on that bid, it's something we could look at, but my take is I'm a little bit nervous about that off the cuff, because I think, you know, traditionally, once you've awarded those contracts, you've awarded them, and that's what you have, those are the contracts you have. So I'm a little bit nervous about going down that path, but if the board's adamant that they want me to look at that, it's something we could look at.
No, well, personally, I don't believe it, because we used to operate with one less than we do now. So what makes the difference? And to open up a can of worms probably not worth the,
Doesn't make sense.
doesn't make 3-year contract.
May I say one other thing? Don't forget, if you go back on that list, those are providers who, one, were much more expensive than what Mike and Diane were looking to pay, or didn't have the wherewithal to join the program. So what is it that you're really adding by going back to people who've already been denied and declined because of their ability to not perform it?
And the cost.
As long as.
And
we
the
have-
cost, exactly.
Yeah, if those can be consumed within, and it's not a problem, then commissioners, we shouldn't have a problem. Where it comes in is if we can't offer, transportation.
To be able to pick it up.
Right, I mean, that's why I've got this meeting July 9th, but talking to both Dave and Jim Galucci, they both said to me, they're both willing to hire more drivers, they're both willing to hire more vehicles. And on top of it, Anthony is going to be selling this stuff off down the road. Now, the question will be when. That's why I want to have this meeting to get stuff lined up. We've got 3 months. I don't want it to come down to the last week where we're, I want this in place.
I only have one other question, and this is to Mr. Danzo. So if they're gonna divide it up among those that are left, is there anything legally they gotta make sure that they do that? Or they can just do it by an agreement?
Well, my
or no
understanding
agreement or
is
what?
that there was no actual fixed dollar amount for these contracts. It was an amount per trip. So expanding the number of trips, they're still gonna be bound by those dollar amounts that they bid per trip.
No maximum or minimum guarantee.
That's my recollection is.
Right,
there's no
no
max.
maximum.
So they can just open it up and
Yeah.
go from there. There's
Yeah, so
nothing
for-
legally that they have to do.
So, for example, Commissioner, here's just one thing.
No, I understand. I
No.
just wanted to make sure.
Right, so for example, we do a lot, and I'm saying a lot of dialysis first thing in the morning. And so the possibility would be is maybe Dave's going there at the same time as what Garland was. He may take those same people, the other people. That way now we're start combining some of these trips, which before we weren't.
Yeah, but so
Or-
how does that work? Do we still pay for two? Pay for one.
No, you pay if 2 people are in the vehicle, pay for both.
So by combining it, it doesn't save us.
No, it doesn't save us, I think, it
It saves
just,
them money.
it saves them money.
Not that much, because don't we still have 2
Yes,
pickups?
that's true.
Yeah, it's still,
So that's a big issue.
yeah.
And the one thing too also to remember is that Garwin only did ambulatory transportation. They did no wheelchair. So if you say, hey, Mike, it's gonna combine 2, you're only combining 2 people who are ambulatory. You're not putting them in with a wheelchair or anything like that.
Which is important because of NET, the non-emergency transportation role that Job and Family Services does and funds through Medicaid. That is the non-ambulatory. So that loss of Garwin, again, being the only one who had the ambulatory services, is not going to necessarily, and I'm not going to speak for Job and Family Services, but just from my historical context of knowing that may not affect them as much. Yes, they were still a provider, but they're going out to bid soon anyways, for NET.
Right, so it'll be one,
So they'll be able to,
whenever.
backfill, hopefully, or find maybe another company, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's what
but-
what they're gonna have to do. It's fine.
It's just a difference of transportation, and then of course it's Medicaid funded, which again can be a whole nother conversation if Medicaid funding changes, but that's not for right here, right now. So it's not just the CDBG that's gonna be impacted. Of
And
course,
then-
there's other funding that's gonna be potentially impacted as well.
And here's the other part I know. The last time they went out for bid, they got Garwin, USA,
USA.
Jodell, and another one called Loving Care or something. So they actually had 4, I thought.
I'm not, it's been a while since.
Right, and so that's what I'm saying. They did get 3 or 4. Now, I do know, I'm not sure about the 4th one, but I know Jodell was another.
But the big delineating factor is that Medicaid pays for those services.
Right.
Not any sort of, it's a completely different service provided based off of Medicaid. And they're managed care providers, whether it's Care Source or whatever, Medical Mutual, whatever, whoever their actual providers are, so.
So,
Different
Yes.
services, that's all I just want to make sure the commissioners are clear with.
Okay, so the thing that we were holding up was sunshine,
sunset.
sunset.
Sunshine.
So we were holding up sunset.
Yeah.
And the prosecutor had mentioned that, we could vote on that.
Yeah, well, they wanted
So-
to change their rates after the contract was awarded is what the question was.
Right, but you had mentioned that they could do that, correct, Bill?
Yeah, I thought we addressed it, but if not, the answer is that, the reason, I guess, Bill Danso, prosecutor's office, the reason of that charge being allowed under the law is that when the bid packet went out, the bid packet allowed for that minimum charge. The contract already allows for the minimum charge. It was just that they had not invoked their right to have that minimum charge, practically speaking, at that point. Now they are, it is already in the contract that they signed, though, that the commissioners had approved, is that authority to have that minimum charge was already in there. So it's legally, it is not a problem to have them institute that after the fact, because it already is contained in their contract documents.
So Mike, you wanted that on the agenda
Yeah,
then, right?
possibly have it on the agenda tomorrow.
Lisa, the last week's, you still have that?
Yes.
We can add that.
Thank you.
Commissioners, you okay with that? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Merkin. What else? Trustee Suttles, you can steer for the, steer for the ride.
Thanks.
Okay, all right, and that concludes our agenda items here. We have a meeting with CCA.
Before we get to CCA out, we need to just bring one thing up. We did have the airplane crash involving an employee of the Port Authority, Joey Maxim, who was a dedicated employee with the Port Authority, very crucial in what goes on here in the valley. The Weller family also, a very community-oriented family owned Sharon Speedway and Liberty Steel. So we are issuing a press release, joint press release with Mahoning County today, offering our sympathy to the families and talking about the loss it is to our community and services that are available for John Hickey and his EMA crew, all of the first responders that responded to the crash, the coroner's office and his staff, and anyone from the air base or that's affected. If they needed to talk for grief counseling or talk to a counselor through our mental health board and Amber or April, sorry, and Mahoning County has numbers also, but that's all going to be in our press release. And I want to thank Alex. It helped write the press release with Mahoning County's HR division. And commissioners, I want you both to look at it before we release it to make sure it meets your approval. But this is something that it's horrific for it to have happened. And I'm not going to use this time very much to state again, but we found once again, our coroner did a wonderful job, but he had to work in the most obscene conditions of dealing with 6 aircraft victims, jet fuel and everything else. And we can't let this happen anymore. We got to do something about the coroner's conditions. They weren't able to use the EMA building yesterday. The coroner couldn't even work in those conditions and leave all the doors open and basically kind of do this outside because of the fumes and the fear of starting fire inside of the building because we have no ventilation. So we can't have another tragedy like this happen without this coroner having the proper way to do his job. Thank God he was Superman and his staff went above and beyond to make this happen so they can make the identities and release the names of the press. But how many more tragedies? We got to do something. I don't care if it's a bond, a loan, whatever we got to do and then pay it back later. We got to get moving on these projects. This could have been a major aircraft full plane, and our 911 would have been ill-equipped at that time. We got to do what we need to do.
I think we all.
Time to comment on
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Let's get through
Right.
that and then we'll attack that issue on a later date.
Yeah, my only comment on it is, Commissioner you had mentioned the tragedy in itself and being from Hubbard. All those family members were from Hubbard, and it hits close to home. They were a very influential people in the business Liberty Steel. And it hits really close to home. So we want to prayers for their families and I thank you, Commissioner, for spearheading the effort to make the press release with Alex on our behalf, Commissioner, for counseling and those different things that they had mentioned, because I believe it's going to be necessary. Something this tragic, especially too with the school, you know, and Commissioner, we just met, he was just with us. And so, you know,
These were two
gone
very,
today,
very
gone tomorrow.
capable, qualified pilots. These pilots were
Right.
the best of the best. So
Yeah, it wasn't.
I'm sure there's nothing had anything to do with them. The Blake
No.
family and the Maxim family
Yeah.
should be proud of the service that their family.
And I think the co-pilot was from Hubbard too. I think we had five individuals from the Hubbard area. So anyway,
Well, as far as the incident, it's sad and it's tragic for Trumbull County. I totally
It
agree
is.
with that. I just want to get into the
right.
politics.
Oh, no.
And I agree with
Yeah.
everybody there. And it's
We'll save those things for another
right. Yeah.
another
it's-
day.
yeah, it's- And our hearts go out to all the families and the friends and people.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna have a meeting with, are we gonna adjourn this meeting and go into a meet, or are we gonna continue
No,
this meeting?
this gotta
It's
be
on the
continuation.
agenda, okay.
It's
Okay,
three of
so
us.
that concludes our agenda items. We're gonna meet with John Lutz and CCAO and the good guys. At least that's what your wife's telling.
I thought
See you,
the wife says it depends.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I guess that's the right.
Now.
That depends on how long you've been married now. All right, I'll see you at the end. All right, how you doing? Nice to see you.
How's the knee?
Johnny.
Good to see you again. How you doing? What's that after this?
How you doing?
I'll see.
So, we're looking at these bids for the buildings, or not bids, but the buildings. We had a meeting with, Buckeye. And, we're down to the wire now. So we're gonna have to make some decisions. I guess the main thing here was that, like in the past, we can't get a rate. And you know, where does that go? I don't know. That had been discussed, so.
He had thrown 399 at us, is what he had.
That is
contract for us.
Yeah.
So we saw that First Energy was at like at 403, 410 that day. There were other municipalities like City of Euclid. We had 3 or 4 others we looked at that were in the 3.5, 3.6 range. That we were able to just Google, what their aggregate was, the contracts that they had. We clearly defined, we want to trust CCAO and trust your leadership that you do with other counties and jump on the team with other counties in the state. But, we need to see where you are at a rate. If we were to sign with you guys today, you got to give us something that's compatible there for us to be able to do that.
Sure.
If you can get a 399 ticket right now.
You think you take the 399?
Without question. Market's not at 399. I don't know what else you're looking at. The market is dramatically higher than 399. So for you to join the CCA group and to start the process there through March, if you can get a 399, take it. I mean, if you look at the front month right now, the winter months are those plus change plus your basis. It's dramatically higher than that. Take the 399 and run, go. You get your supplier to do that, take it.
Well,
Is there any provision? Was that locked in or was there a stipulation that after so long it goes up?
we have,
They're moving us into our own aggregate program is what's going on. It's only till March, and then we can readdress, well, before March, we'll obviously readdress the issue, but because we have to for our aggregate program for our residents, They're just throwing us in with the residents.
I'm opening up to what the prices are right now, so just bear with me a second. I'm just trying to be realistic for you.
This is what he gave us.
Yeah, if you can get,
Yeah.
I'm
I
not,
said that too.
I don't know who it is.
Oh, you already said?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
If your supplier will let you in at $3.99 with all your county facilities,
March, you say do it.
do it immediately. Go, take it.
Geez, why did we get these guys all the way out here?
Well,
You got us here.
Secondly, if you want to participate in our program, again, we first do no harm. If you can get them, a lot of suppliers, and I know who the supplier is here, they are a little bit more lenient. A lot of suppliers out there would never allow, why would they want to add, and I have no idea what you're told, you said, just let's say it's 20,000 MCF. Let's just, I don't guess, okay? Most suppliers say, no, I don't want that in the group at $3.99 because it's a government facility, they're not in gov ags usually, if they're gonna allow it, take it. Without question, take it. I mean, we tell you to save you money on. Now, if you're gonna choose to join the CCAO program from April on, we need to know sooner than rather than later so that we know when the prices are at a good time to hit additional values for you, that's the time to do it. But for right now, if you can get that, take it.
So in other words, what's gonna happen is this 399 after this term is gonna be bumped to a level where it would probably be comparable. I think.
Right, I mean, it'll be what the market will bear. You know, we've got a couple things on the table here. We have, first of all, your natural gas facilities, which apparently that price takes you through March, end of March for your natural gas facilities. As Kirk said, we can't get that price. No one can get that price for you at this
But
point.
your gov ag, yeah,
But-
so, right.
But we really believe that, you know, it's time now for you to decide to come into our program for managing your government ag program. Basically, your residential program for natural gas that ends after this they would have you in there. And then your electric ag, which ends like a month or 2 months later. We've got some of your back to facilities. We've been provided some of your facilities natural gas bills, but we still don't have enough information, you know, to totally understand that and be able to analyze it. But what we would propose is that, you know, you join our program for government facilities, gas, after you go through this. But we work now and you join our program to help you prepare for both of your government aggregation programs. And sooner is better than later because we need to start understanding what the numbers are, understand the load, understand what you currently have out there, so then we can start getting it ready to RFP and get it out in the marketplace. And, you know, the market fluctuates. And as I made a comment, I think was to Alex, you don't want to buy being natural gas for a gov ag program in November, December, January. So the sooner you bring us in to manage the programs for you, the sooner we can start looking to optimize what's going to be best for your resident members, you know, in your government ag programs.
If you look at, I'm just trying to get technical for a second. If you look at like next July, it's 410, and that doesn't include the supplier fee on top of that basis, which is probably around, just throwing a dart, 50 cents. So for next July, you're at 460 right now. So you can take the 399. We always give you what's in the best if, again, the supplier is accepting you to do that. But then get into the program, with the natural gas program for the facilities. And then we can start looking out in April timeframe in the future to see what's the best deals out there for your supplier fees, get you the best possible, you know, supplier add-ons at that point with the contractual obligations behind it. And then you're in the program there. And that's where the energy committee is made up of, you know, commissioners, facilities managers, CAs that are making these decisions with you. And if you want to participate in that, that's certainly something John has talked about. If you want to participate in that, you're welcome to as well.
Yeah, so what I'm getting, and commissioners, I think you're getting it too. Take this, it buys time to be able to initiate this program to find out where exactly we're at with, you know, the numbers, and buys time. So we're not rushing into something, and this rate probably can't get it anywhere else. So the timeline gives us a little bit of a cushion before if the commissioners agree to join CCAO in the program,
Well, I mean,
right?
I think sooner than later, because the sooner we can have access to your information, understanding what's out there, the sooner we can start putting an RFP together and getting information back to you to make a decision. The longer you go, the harder it is to do a best job for you. You know, we need to have the information now. We need to start working on it so that when we get up to the beginning of that new contractual period for your gov ag programs, you know, we're ready to roll. And I think, Kirk, we could take a couple minutes to show you or talk to you how we actually run a gov ag program, because you haven't had experience with that with us yet.
Right,
So,
and on the gas too, from that perspective, you have to remember that if you choose to put Trumbull in that, again, I'm using, I think you were somewhere around 20,000, I could be wrong, but we can talk about that later and get actual numbers, but if you're 20,000 MCF a year, this program has 1.6 million units in it. So you're getting the benefit of all those units when you're RFPing this out and all the contractual obligations behind it. So it's the pooling concept, and it really helps. And what's been wonderful about this program is it's been set up to benefit large counties. So all the large counties are, you've got Cuyahoga, Lucas, Hamilton, Franklin, and Mahoney. They're all participating in this program. Medium-sized county, there's 76 or something. Yeah, in the smaller counties as well. I put Trumbull in the medium category. We have some counties that only use a few thousand MCF a year. We have counties that use 110,000. Just depends on the size in the county. I think you're in the medium category based on what I've seen with your electric and all that other stuff.
So if we sign with you for you to, you know, provide us with that service, how long is that good for? Does it have a limit? Do we have to sign it each year, or can we opt out if we don't like it, or how does that work?
so once you want us to do it for you, you're in the program until you decide you want to get out. The key thing about doing aggregation programs is they have a maximum time limit under state law of 3 years. So every 3 years, you have to put a government aggregation for your residents back out. We'll come back to you with a recommendation. Okay, your next period could be 1, 2, or 3 years. We'll bring you numbers for all three and recommendations, see which one you want to go. You obviously have to work with us through that period. And you can choose not to do it, but you'd still be a part of our program and could be involved, you know, once you adopt the exhibit, which brings you in and lets us work that for you.
Commissioner,
And
can
you're
I,
in 76 or 77 counties right now?
yeah, can I make a comment just to clarify what Don said? If you're talking about your county facilities, you've already signed a base participation agreement with the County Commissioners Association. There's an exhibit that puts you into the natural gas program. How that program works for your participation is we go out for RFP with the suppliers. You would be obligated if we do a 2-year deal with the suppliers. Again, that's all approved by the County Commissioners Executive Energy Committee on that, with Palmer acting as the program manager for it. And so you might be last year deal was a 2-year deal on it. You'd be into that program for that point. If you wanted to get out saying, yeah, we just want to do it on our own, you could do that. And it would start right after that next period, number one.
And we could do it for you, run it separately if that's what you want to do.
No, I was just wondering.
Just government
You know, in
aggregation.
case someone says, well, you guys went into that program and this guy over here comes in and said, well, you could have got it a lot cheaper. And I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get some of that.
Well, I think the position here is you're going to get what the market bears when you're in that market. And whatever it is that day that a contract's signed, we're probably gonna have the best price on it.
Yeah, and what you're telling us, we can use a larger amount. Your contract for a larger amount. So we're gonna get on.
That's because you're between
Throwing us in.
Well, you're
contracts of when you did the group doing it.
You're not in the program, so I haven't allocated anything to your,
Gotcha.
I can't just sit here and throw you in at this point.
And what cuts everybody else or.
Well, in essence, we need you to join the program and pass the exam so that we can start putting numbers together, looking what you have, so we can make a recommendation.
So we can join the program and take this other rate till March.
All I'm saying on the other rate is if you can get the other rate through your supplier, do it. I can't sit here and I can't guarantee they're gonna give you that rate. I have no idea. But if you can do it, get it.
If his rate is truly what it is and we can truly get it, you're saying, go ahead and take it.
Absolutely. I mean, right now, I think January is at 450 or 460 plus your basis charge on top of that. So let's say it's at 510. I mean, you're getting it at 399. Take it now.
Well, I guess the question is there a basic charge on top of that 399?
We don't have.
Yes.
Not our deal.
Commissioners,
You know,
Bill Danso, prosecutor's office, that's my understanding, Chair, correct me if I'm wrong, but that rate is in place because that is the aggregation rate that was actually entered into just for all of the other aggregation before the prices went as high as they are now. And they're saying, at least Buckeye is
They will
telling
take
you
us on.
that they will take you. And because that's an older rate that was locked in so far in the past, that's what they're able to offer. But nobody at this point is gonna offer that rate present day. So my other understanding, just for what it's worth, and these folks can confirm, my understanding with virtually all of the government aggregation programs is there is an opt-out with no penalty or problem at any time in there. So not that you'd want to do all the paperwork for it, but if you went into the 399 rate and then said, you know what, let's jump over to, you know, whatever it is with CCAO, there would be no problem getting out of that aggregation, assuming you're just in the general government aggregation, as I understand it.
Correct. But any aggregation, again, I'm not talking to your specific aggregation. Any specific aggregation that the CCAO does, we have zero termination fees to get out of, period. That's, we believe very strongly. I don't know about your current aggregation, but I'm saying.
But we'd have to verify.
But if you can, I keep coming back to, if you can get that, run with it, go, take it. Now, one thing I did want to say, I brought Phil along today for one reason, and we talked briefly about this. But if you get involved with the aggregation, there's a difference. We do pooling with your facilities. That's, I know it sounds like a technical term, but we do pooling for your facilities, aggregation for your county constituents. One thing that I've heard from your staff is that you get in a lot of calls about what's going on out there and all these other things. One thing that we try to do differently is I would put Phil out here for a week or two when those new agreements come out. So he is taking the calls and we still have a number that goes directly to us. But I wanted to introduce you to Phil in case, so you don't have a face with a name. If you choose to go down the other path, the aggregation, we want to take time off your staff's hands. In order to do that, we try to do what's easier when these major changes happen. And in the case with the market going up so dramatically like it has over the last few years, having somebody here helpful, first off, for two reasons: educating your constituents and educating your employees at some level, the staff, because there might be a simple question they could just answer, but we have the back room to handle all these additional calls. I don't want them handling the calls. Push it on to us. That's what we're here for. That's why we get paid. But it's important to put a face with a name where I'd have Phil out here during that time. And it's kind of a interesting, it might go 4 days, might go 5 days. If we're still getting a lot of calls, we'll keep going in, but then you still have the 1-800 number. Please use that. That's why we have staff to call and handle those and address those issues. And our history has been that they're not usually negative calls. They're, I don't want to say ignorant, but that's the way, they just don't understand exactly and they want to have it explained out.
9 times out of 10.
And that's why we're here. So we're talking about two different things, but from that. If you're making those decisions on, obviously with the natural gas that John was saying, you need to do it sooner rather than later. I mean, difficult to call us in January and February and say, hey, we need gas in 2 months. That's not, can I do it? Yeah, we did it on your electricity. We got it for you in a week, but that's not the most cost-effective way for you as a county to do it. It would make more sense to do it in the future, farther in the past on. And for your gov ags especially, you know, the markets go up and down. It was down significantly yesterday. It's down today. And I'm not saying we wouldn't lock anything in today, but I'm just saying they go up and down so much. You don't want to be ever forced into a deal. And giving you time to make those decisions are what's important, not necessarily, you know, saying, okay, January comes, we want in your program. Well, you need gas in April. That's
So with
not
our
enough time.
electric rate that we have with you, where are we at? We have electric one with you guys.
Facilities.
So where are we at rate wise compared to everybody else?
Oh,
What did we lock in at?
0.7,
yeah,
0719.
yeah, you have a very decent rate from that perspective, but that was only for, what was it, a year type?
Yeah, we did,
Quick.
I think 14
quick
months or
deal.
something.
Yeah, but my
like that.
point is, we're saving money by dealing with it.
Absolutely.
That's my point.
And that's our goal, to have
So that's
all of our members
That's
save money.
my opinion, we need to look at you for gas, we're saving money right now. Hopefully we can save money later on.
And Commissioner, yes, that's very important, but I also need you to, we are very, I am very conservative. We tell you the way it is out there. There is no games or everything taking place. You hear the reality of what's happening out there.
No, I get it.
Good or bad, it's in front of you.
I get it. But it was a good move for us to go with electric. though. That's my point.
So, where do we go from here?
Well, Commissioner, I'd recommend that, since you're already in the program, you adopt the, addendum agreements that make you participants in each of the other aspects in the facilities, natural gas. So we can look at it, and of course, as Kirk said, you can get those prices today for that
Yeah.
period of time. Take them, because nobody else is gonna get you that. And then also do the addendum or amendment for the natural gas government aggregation program. So we can get started on that, understand what the program is, what the load factors are, and start looking at pricing for that. And then also do the same thing for the electric government ag program, because that comes up due like a month or two after your natural gas current government ag program expires. And we'll work our way through that. And, you know, when we get down to you making decisions on government ag programs, you know, you have the opportunity to decide, do you want to do a year, 2 years, or 3 years? Based on pricing and how that goes. And the one thing about, you know, if we're involved now and managing those programs for you, because we can't talk to folks, we can't talk to suppliers unless they know we're your agent in essence. So we couldn't bring you a pricing today for gas facilities because we still aren't your agent, and the suppliers aren't gonna recognize that. Right, they won't, so it's important that we get recognized as your agent so we can start putting this together. And, you know, the sooner we are, who knows what's gonna happen in the market? The market might totally collapse here in the next couple of weeks or month, and we could. But the thing is, the sooner we're involved, the sooner we're on top of it for you to help get you the best information and help you make the best decision for your resident.
And I think too, commissioners, just so our residents know and the taxpayers, that this isn't only a decision being made for aggregation of electric and gas. This is a package that CCAO helps and assists the commissioners with over and above this aggregation program. Because some, you know, they may say, well, you know, you went with them and said, well, they don't understand that that's not all you do. So, yeah.
And again, I think that's one of the things that we pride ourselves in, helping our commissioners deliver a very good service to their residents in these programs. And I think you'll see that, you know, we're kind of like, we're full services. Like we said, we do the GovAg program. We're not going to want you to take questions from the residents. I mean, that's our job. That's their job. We take care of all that stuff for you. Try to have you guys as involved as soon as possible, other than being the ultimate decision maker on what you want to do.
Kurt, can I ask a question?
Mhm.
So if we go
Nature.
on.
Did
This
you?
isn't.
I know, but they make us do that.
No, they said we didn't have to. Anyway, regardless, so we would need to sign on for both the residence aggregation program along with our facilities, because those will be separate.
They're separate. No, you can choose one or the other. You can't,
That's what I'm,
you can do whatever you want. There's the commissioners at this point have signed the main agreement, the county commissioners,
yes,
and they signed the exhibit for electric.
Yes.
For facilities. You have 3 more exhibits that you'd have to sign. and-
Would do for this one, we'd have to do the aggregation program for the residents.
Yeah,
And we'd have to do one for our facilities,
correct.
because those are typically separate. He's just able, because Constellation will take us, roll our facilities into that 399 price.
Well, I'm not able, that's you guys.
No, that's what I'm explaining it to him. That's how we're doing it, right? But we would have to have the 2 exhibits so that we could do the aggregation program for the residents. And the facilities are separate.
Right, okay.
And if you do the facilities natural gas now, then when this offer expires, if you could go through it, then we'll be there to start working on it, to have pricing for you, not at the last minute when that expires. We'll
Yes.
work through there.
Right. Yeah, it gives us some time to, this way, to get. Yeah.
It buys you some time.
Yeah.
And gives us the opportunity to do it right. So.
So you need an agreement from us.
The exhibit.
Exhibits, what, yeah.
I did,
What is it?
We got some other stuff for the 2 of you afterwards. Just some procedural stuff that I don't know.
100%.
But I didn't bring those in here, and you've seen all these before. There are one's the natural gas purchasing program, one's the natural gas ag, and one's the natural or electric aggregation purchasing.
And you should already have an electronic.
You have an electronic.
I was gonna say,
You have all that?
I think I might electronically already.
Yeah. I didn't see, when you did the first one, I didn't see you jump up and it seemed to, I mean, this was created by prosecutors and.
Yeah,
Commissioners and all this stuff.
We have them, they were.
Well,
moving forward in that direction. If he accepts that and lets us do that, that's great.
We'll go
No,
work
Lisa.
real fast for you. Give us some.
That we sign up, I mean, technically it would be allowing us in the, like, his last paycheck for now, knowing that we're gonna move in this other direction, but
give him time to,
yeah.
yeah. Rather than just jump ship and.
I just like the safety.
Commissioners, that's why you're elected to make those big
I like the
decisions.
safety of the 76 counties in the same boat, us having a say, as being part of the people steering the ship and not just along for the ride.
And again, commissioners, I think that's an important point is we do have a strong pool of participants, which means our loads and our, demand is great, and bringing a larger demand to the table, suppliers respond to that. And we are fortunate to be able to get better pricing simply because they have to deal with the larger volume of need, and they certainly want to keep us happy. So.
Yeah, well, it's like Walmart and Costco versus,
Yes.
I know. Yes, Lisa.
Am I adding the slide back on now? 3.99.
Yeah.
Someone needs to
Yes,
call
please.
and make sure that it's still good for tomorrow.
Well, Sheriff said locked in. You did say it is.
He
right?
said we could, that's why I suggested it last week.
That's what you
Did you
do.
look at that? Mr. Danzo, did you look at, make sure that's all?
No, I didn't look at anything with the aggregate because it was just the aggregate to opt into, so there's no separate agreement or anything for that. It's. The only trick would come if you try to add to the aggregate and they say, oh, no, sorry, we can't take you, then we have to cross that. But if it's simply adding to the aggregate, that should be as easy as just, yeah.
Where are you going, John? Columbus.
Well, nowhere very far with my knee and the conditions it's in, so it's like. Let me hear about my trip to Switzerland. It's great. So.
Well, gentlemen, we appreciate the trip. I don't know if there's something
Hey,
that.
John, you know what other counties do with public defender?
Oh, please, yes, unfortunately. I mean, we can talk about that a bit if you want. I didn't hear.
You know,
No, I need to hear the story.
I think we got this bitch, where the governor's paying 88% of our public defender fees. So our rate went down.
Your
We agreed to
reimbursement
go in a
rate.
contract with them. Now
Who
we
are
need,
you going into? Are you contracting with the state public defender's office?
yes,
Okay,
And-
okay, all right, okay.
and then we bill the municipalities out there for what they do based on the code,
Yeah,
but nobody, Laura, at public defender's office couldn't tell us what the breakdown was. We don't know what the breakdown was. So we're basically billing to be reimbursed. But we have no formula or anything on what that's based.
so who
We're
would,
just signing agreements. We're not billing anybody. We are signing agreements.
Signing agreements to get.
I do not send an invoice out.
who's, is this, do you have a county public defender office? Or who's it, or is this with the state public?
With the state.
Yeah.
public.
You signed with the state
Yeah.
public
I
defender's
think we
office.
are the largest county to
You-
sign a
you-
contract with the state.
You would be.
Yeah.
And what happened in the past is you, for a while, oh, that's right, you guys are one of those counties. You used to get your reimbursement appropriation separately. There was one for you and one for the other guys and one for everybody in general. So yeah, you're basically run by the state public defender's office. And, you know, I can't speak specifically to this without spending a lot of time, but I can tell you that the new state public defender is really a very sharp individual. They are working very hard to, I mean, she's following the tradition of her predecessor, and they're gonna do the best they can for you. So I have confidence in state public defender's
We do
office.
too, but we just don't know how much
Well,
how we
again,
break it down to get reimbursed from the municipalities.
well,
We're paying for the
it's-
county.
it's a question of if they are municipal code citations.
Right.
Then the municipality, if there's a public defender, you know, if it's a municipal code citation and they have a public defender involved, the municipality is responsible for paying those fees. If it is a state criminal code violation that was issued by the municipality and is being, you know, processed through either a municipal court or a county court,
Then the state comes,
then, yeah,
state filing,
Well, they start down in those
Yeah.
courts too.
they start there, but they move here.
well, yeah. Then the county is responsible for that because it's a state citation. And it's simply a question of what's the rate that the public defender is going to charge you for providing those services. And then, of course, you're going to get reimbursed what you get reimbursed, whatever
Right.
that number is. So, you know. that's-
We pay for a lot, and I mean a lot.
There's a lot of concern across the state about counties being obligated to cover a lot of these.
It's ridiculous.
Because what will happen is the arresting jurisdiction will automatically cite under the state criminal code if they have a parallel citation.
Yeah.
They have a parallel criminal code.
They can, yeah,
And if they understand the person probably doesn't have any money to pay a fine, they'll cite them under, you know, the state code, because they're not gonna get any fine money out of them, rather than the muni code where they think they could get
Yes.
something. So it's not working well, but it's the only way it's right now, so.
And if they do it under the municipal code, like Warren Muni, the city of Warren would get all the money from the fines, right? So we're billing them.
But they would also be responsible
no,
for,
we do not see at one penny of the fines.
I understand
That's
that.
Warren City.
I understand that. So
Everything.
that's why we were billing them, because we're not getting anything back from that.
It's their responsibility to fund municipal defense, but they also get the benefit.
That's the state code, we are gonna get some money back.
I believe so. I don't know
So
how
that's
that's.
why we don't go on.
on the fine, yes, there's there's a little bit of fine money you
Yeah,
get back,
it's not
but
a
it's
huge amount.
not worth writing home about. I'm sorry. That's like- Yeah. A public defender's just been well, that's primarily what I did for like 20 years. I had helped in the defense public defender stuff, and it's rough road to ride. So.
Alice Hill, I talked to her yesterday, she called me back and that's where we got that, if they choose not to sign on with our agreement, they cannot use the services. That's all.
Yeah,
It's
and
that simple.
they'll be on
It's
their
a
own to
big
figure it
deal.
out.
They don't want it, they don't have to pay for it, but they don't get the use of it. There
So
you
then
go.
they would just cite under the state code, and then they do get it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, if they want to cite municipal code, then they'd have to either appoint counsel or
Yep.
have their own
Pay
contract.
for their own counsel.
Well, did I miss something? How do you bill? Cause I had, I mean,
You actually, unfortunately, you don't bill them. They bill you, you approve the bills. Legal counsel submits the bills, the court approves the bill. Then in essence, you pay the bill. And then you get reimbursed based on what you wrote. But the bill you're gonna get is basically predicated upon what the public defender's hours are and the rate the public defender charges, which will, once they submit their bill for service, the court's gonna look that over too and approve it before, you're.
Well, and just to be clear, in our county, that, we're not doing it that way. Our county, the contract would be, right, so it's a flat rate contract.
Flat rate, I got, okay,
Right.
so.
I have to send
That
a check
sounds
for
like a lot more work.
117,000.
So it's a flat rate contract. They've done their best figuring out what time they're probably gonna spend.
Yeah.
They've probably looked at a history of caseloads, so they figure that this gets them enough money to cover the costs like they need to. And, you're gonna just give them a flat contract and, yeah.
And that's kind of the way it's operated for us. I feel like I don't know where the numbers came from, but clearly they came from somewhere.
Oh, yeah, they looked at past caseloads, past time, and they didn't just look at last year's, they looked at. Historic.
We asked them 2 years ago and they said they don't know, they can't justify where they lost. They don't have a detailed invoice to give us.
I don't know about that. I mean, somewhere in their system, they've crunched a number based on what helps them, cover the expenses of their staff.
we're still,
I'm going to call Mr. Blank and find out what,
what's a good
that's
number?
Lordstown, what's a good number? Because regardless, the other ones have to go
How
out.
much,
They
how
now
much is
have
it, how much is it going up?
Oh, it's not going up. The proposal is to keep it the same as it's
Oh.
been
Yeah.
for 10 years.
Maybe 20.
Maybe 20.
Oh, well,
This is what I
why
said.
aren't you grabbing it?
No. Yeah,
We're
we're
losing at
I
that.
was gonna
20
say,
years ago.
that's the rate that we're billing back to the municipalities. That's not changed.
Oh.
Ours has gone up
Okay.
No, we're the ones, yeah.
exponentially. in the
It's
past
crazy.
few
Probably
years.
100%.
About 400.
400.
If I remember correctly, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, if you just look at how much everything has gone up in general.
It's a losing, well, I shouldn't say that because it's representation for our residents, but it's, for the county, it's a loss. We're
Yes.
paying,
Considering we're paying prosecutorial services, we're paying public defender services, yes, the county is losing money, period,
so,
as a whole. And we're all taxpayers here, all of us. So it's,
They've
it's
been
frustrating.
losing money for a year and a half because nobody's been billed, so,
Yeah.
we agreed to go for another week to see how to straighten it out.
I'll talk to Mr. Blank and we'll go from there, and I will put it back on next week.
Commissioners,
you up,
next week.
when things look good on
Oh.
that end,
Next time.
we just need to probably sign some stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, man, you do that DocuSign, or how do you do that?
Usually you guys sign it, we can do document if you want, or.
Well, it doesn't
It'll have to
matter.
go on the next agenda for the,
Oh, we have to
to
approve this,
approve
yeah.
addendum,
right?
however many of the addendums in accordance with the contract you've already done,
We'll
so.
put the 399 on, we can just put that right back on, approve it, that we can move into our government ag. Move the facilities, I don't even think there's that many buildings really.
Yeah.
And if they don't do it, we'll help out to get something.
Okay, sounds good,
Constellation's usually pretty open to that.
okay, that sounds wonderful.
There are a bunch of folks where, government's facilities, they don't let them in a GovEd program.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Because the GovEd program is for residents.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most don't. So
so.
Yeah,
take this opportunity.
just, hey, for 7 months, it'll get us through the winter, at 399,
It's
that's
going
good.
up. I'm just telling you, it's going up after that,
Got it.
unless, let me repeat myself. If there's a market crash in energy in the next 5 months, it's not.
Fine.
I just see it right now going up a little bit.
I think that was the concern in general, I mean, even for what it's worth. both entities are saying it's going to go up. Mr., you know, he was very clear it will go up. This is just so the commissioners are preparing for the future and making the best, most informed decision instead of waiting until the last minute, because that's just,
Well, we
we're
can't,
not gonna get the
we
best
can't,
cost.
we can't with this anyway, because we're done as of August.
Right.
We're done with the facilities. It's not gonna be there. So we have to move forward
We have to plan.
on our facilities. And yeah, we
Is
do
what we're
need to
saying.
start planning.
We're here to help do that.
And again, facilities is one thing, because that's a cost that we're paying
But the
as
public
the
is
county,
another.
but when we get to the aggregate, if we don't have all of our ducks in a row and plan the correct way and gave enough time to make sure that we're making the most informed decisions, the public is then. It's a different, you guys understand that, I'm sure, everybody understands.
Oh, yeah.
Internal versus external is a big difference.
And we're here to help you with the extra. We're here to help you communicate and explain, and, you know, you're required to have a couple public hearings on that. I mean, we're here to run those for you and do all the PR and reach out and talk to whoever you think we need to talk to. I mean, we're good at talking to the media, so
Very good.
we're here for you.
Thank you for everybody's time today. I do need you for just one
Yeah.
minute.
No worries.
Well, commissioners,
Before we adjourn, I thought Christian was coming in today from Yale.
What happened to her?
does
said
she
somebody
come
would
to
be
the
here.
workshops or will she be coming to public meetings?
Oh, she was supposed to have someone here today at the workshop.
Oh, okay. We'll have to question that. Because we did hear that they would be at every meeting. Especially after Washington, right?
Yeah, she's got the full rundown with that, and they're supposed to
Yeah,
be
I
here.
thought she was gonna be here today.
Maybe tomorrow they'll do it at the public discussion session of it, but she's supposed to be here today.
Yeah, because I still have to do their PO. KO, I got them set up as a vendor and all that, but yeah, you gotta make sure that they're documenting and really, I mean, commissioners, I need to know what you want me to start the PO with, money
I mean,
wise.
the good thing with it is she did get confirmation about from the Treasury Department. We have a letter coming within, she said 2 weeks.
Okay,
We would have the letter stating we can reallocate ARPA funds. The other part she said is, there's the potential,
you did.
you know, let's say this one, Sharon. There's the potential of up to $10 million more in ARPA funds for some counties. If they report everything correctly from the first batch of money they got.
I can promise you I have.
Which I know we do, and some counties may not do it as well,
We do.
but there are other possibilities of other monies. The Treasury Department is gonna release that in September
Don't hold your breath.
of this year,
I'm in.
additional funds, but the first part, the question we had, the main goal that we had with Treasury Department, she's got the answer, she'll have it in writing for us, that we can reallocate the funds.
Did you
So
hear
then,
that?
so then we need to know how much funds are left out here.
Well,
We need to get it back in as soon as possible.
we have these MOUs.
Instead of
The
just.
ones that those grants that we gave out, those are done. We did do $1 million revolving loan fund through, Valley, is it Valley Partners?
It might have been Valley.
Valley Vision.
No, it's Valley Partners.
Valley Park.
It's not Valley
What's
Vision.
it called?
No, that's what we paid.
Well, we just need to know how much money we have left.
What we're gonna have, it's gonna be whatever they don't spend, like, Gary Newbrow is spending every penny.
Let's help Nelson. Cause we're gonna need that money.
Well, that's what I've been trying to tell the board.
I thought we sent a letter out to those people and told them not to do that.
The board has, yeah.
I don't know if we sent a letter to anybody, I haven't seen the
I
letter.
thought we're supposed to notify them.
They have to report to us, but we haven't sent them a letter to like, you need to stop spending money. And most of those is like, what's left, literally just our attorney. Unless there's some local that did not spend all
How much
the
does Gary
funds.
Newbrow have left that we can?
But he keeps spending.
What was the letter that was sent, Chris, by you? That's why I'm just.
That was to reallocate the ARPA funds.
Yeah,
That was what?
To reallocate, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll have to like really get
Well, we know,
into it
we know
to
the
see where we
EPA
are.
has 400,000.
Yes, I will have like I'm gonna at least
Can we
have,
get a letter out telling the people that we need to know how much is left and we ask them not to spend any more?
Well, the only ones we can really control in that are gonna be ones that are
Yeah.
ups. If we mail a check to Howland for fire truck.
No, I don't mean that. I mean like the ones that we can control here.
Correct.
And how, if they don't spend it, we get that back automatically anyway.
Well, for the most part, we wrote them checks, didn't we? We didn't pay the
Yes.
bills. So if
No.
they have it in their accounts, that's gonna be on the honor system for them to report back to us how they spent it.
well, no, I'm making them, and this is a part of the deal, Denny. We have to account for every penny. They have to send me copies of their titles and all of that. But nobody's really done. I've had a few that have sent things back and nobody else really has.
Well, that's what we have to be, because if we get compliance with that, that's how we're gonna get additional money.
What do you want me to do?
We-
Go strong arm them?
we
Do you want
have
me to
to,
drive
in
around
a sense.
county?
So we have to send them a letter and tell them.
Go take a sheriff's step.
No, we have to send them a letter and just say, you know, for accounting purposes, we need to know X, Y, and Z.
That's a lot. Do you know how many letters have to go out?
Well, you know what?
I-
If we're gonna,
What, 175 letters?
If we have a
And
chance to
need
get
come up with
10
addresses,
if
numbers.
we have a chance of getting $10 million, we gotta do it. Because that $10
Well,
million.
I'm gonna need additional staff to
Well,
help me.
you just got.
That's all. She's
This
getting me
is,
treading water though.
Well,
This is for.
I mean, we gotta do it. I mean, we just have to do it.
I understand. I'm just telling you this is an extremely large
I
undertaking.
understand it,
I
but
used to have.
We gave away a lot of money.
I know, and we need to recoup it whatever we can and get this extra 10 million saved.
I've been asking about Valley Partners,
Well,
about the loan, the revolving loan. Where's the funds? What are they paying back? But there's no reports.
From anyone?
Very little. I have very little reporting. Martha gave me a folder like that big and it only had like one or two in there.
So now we need updated.
So we'll get on it.
yeah, I mean, that's important.
Well, we have to, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I have to report again. It's due in July. I will have to report again for my quarterly. And then I'll have to get on it. And we'll just have to email and send out as much as I
Well,
can.
you got a guy right there, he can issue a court order.
I don't have that power.
But yeah, like Gary, I've been trying to figure out what Slack, he's spending it like crazy, like he's. What'd we say? We don't think he's gonna get to phase 4, cause we allocated to him $600,000 just in Slack. There's a lot of money that's been out, that we have $115,000 left over from the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
I think too, I mean, I'm just trying to kind of stay, but I do think that we're gonna find that there is. Sorry, Alex Stephen Jensen Bush.
It might be $1 million though.
I do think that there is going to be even small amounts left over from certain smaller townships. Guys, I will just tell you the truth. We know there's gonna be money left over. I don't know that it's gonna quantify, to the tune of 2-3 million, but every penny counts as far as
Sure
reporting.
does.
Every penny counts as far as being compliant. The last people you don't want to be compliant with is the United States Treasurer.
Well, here's the,
And if it means we're gonna get more money, then do.
Well, here, understood, but here's the thing. I can't undo
What's been done.
not one of those in there. You can't do that. I have literally it matches. This is what we've spent, this is what we got. And they match.
Yeah, no,
And
I
you can't
understand.
change that.
Totally agree.
About the
We
time you
wanna
change.
it.
No, you don't.
We're not trying to go back.
We definitely don't want to change that.
Yeah, we just wanna know what's there so we can be in compliance to possibly get that money.
Oh, I'll make sure
Yeah.
that we. Whatever I gotta do, but we can't undo that in the US Treasury reporting.
No,
portal. Can't
It's
do that.
just going, they gotta let us know something.
Well, I'm going to, what I'll do is I will just make them report. I'll say, I need the report now of what you spent. I need copies of receipts. That's what I've done. Like if they bought, like Newton Falls bought an ATV, I made them produce the title. Send me a copy of the title.
Itemized. Statement.
You bought an ambulance, send me a copy of the title.
Well, and because that's what it was journalized for. So
Yes.
They have to produce that.
No, they do. That was a part of
That was
the
a part of
agreement.
the agreement. They have.
That's
to
integral
include those
part.
things.
I was never
It's
involved in
all-
any of that. I was just the grunt worker.
And we have to insure those things. That was also. So.
Well, we just need it, that's all I know. We done?
Well, we need to set some precedent too, because I got a call yesterday from one of the townships. And they said, hey, you gave us this, and this. We still have $18,000 left that we were putting toward our park that we approved. But we want to do a pickleball court, it's gonna cost 30, can we get 12 more so we can have the pickleball?
What? This is what it
And I
was.
said,
Yeah.
I don't,
We see that.
at this point, I don't
This is
see
stuff
it. I said, but they are coming to present.
Anything they
They said that they want to come to a public meeting and ask for it, because they didn't get as much as other townships.
That's funny because I was hit up today for 70,000 for additional money.
So, so it's still out there. And they want to spend the rest of their 18, but they can't spend it unless they get 12 more to complete the project. So,
See the look on my face.
just telling you, they know what other townships got and they know what other entities got, and they're trying to
get it as much as they can get.
All right, what's next?
I don't know, Nick, do you have something? You guys, or
Nick Coggins, Trumbull County Planning Commission. I actually am here with Michael McGiffin and
Michael?
Drew Cooper with Lakes River and Jobs Ohio respectively.
Yes.
They had emailed the commissioners and Commissioner Roy had asked them to come today at 12:30 after the workshop. So Drew Cooper is the Government Affairs for Jobs Ohio. And Michael McGiffin is with our Lakes River local region. So they came in just to present, talk, and if you guys hand it over.
Yeah, we can welcome them, but we would want to release, we will not release, but like, you guys don't have to hang out here. I think Sharon, they wanted to talk. Huh? Kirk Pizza, Kirk Cajun. Captain Kirk. Sure.
Next few times.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Say, Mike. Commissioner, how you doing?
No worries, I know you guys.
Nice to see you. No, you didn't interrupt. We were at hi. Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yes.
Is it your turn?
Yes, meeting with GCAO.
Okay. Good to see you too.
Yeah, I'll see you.
No, I'm sorry, nice to see you.
Yeah, we've met on the first Trumbull County. That's true.
You too.
This is Drew. This is a fresh.
How you doing? Good, how are you?
Good.
Bill Danzo.
Oh,
nice to meet you.
You
guys like to sit anywhere
Yeah.
particular or? This is
Yeah.
That's all.
Thanks.
Lisa doesn't bite.
How's the day going so far?
It's been busy and it's just begun because we got a couple other meetings, right, Commissioner? We gotta go.
2:00.
2:00.
So
Oh, yeah, we got a 2:00, that's right. But, doing well. Just doing business as usual, trying to figure out where to garner more money. How we can bring more money.
For that.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the immediate play, but we
Right.
believe economic development is
Yes.
one of, if not the only wealth builders
Right.
for communities. Everything else is cycling money that's already in the system.
Yeah.
Economic development is how you attract money that's outside the market.
Exactly. And
And they're
then,
probably not gonna provide immediate relief, but can change the scale for 5-6 years from now.
taxes, property tax, income taxes, any kind of, anything filed. Without raising taxes, but at some point in time, depending on what happens, we don't know what's gonna happen with the,
For
that
the operating
bill.
budget or the property tax bill.
Our inside millage is really hinged on, that 10 mil brings in about 8 to 10. So, nobody wants to pay property tax. They just don't understand where their services come from.
I heard a good opinion this morning.
hey, let's not state names because we're still on the record. Technically.
Okay. Mike McGiffin, Vice President, Lake River Economic Development.
And Drew Cooper, I lead the government affairs team at Job Ohio.
Yeah, and when we speak, we just mention our names because some things that can transpire if we don't, unfortunately.
Lawsuits.
It's a long
Well,
story.
we'll follow your lead. You tell us if, so Mike, we.
Mike, we give you,
Yeah.
you got the floor, yeah.
We'll follow your lead. You tell us if we need to make any clarifications about that. One of the opinions that I heard just this morning, never really actually thought about how property taxes is what you can utilize to make sure that your community is keeping up its properties, right? That's how you leverage your ability as both, if depending on which form of government you are, but specifically in this case, that's how you make sure that your property owners are doing their best by their property. Because then you can leverage the property tax if they're delinquent, for instance, if you've got out of town owners. It's the property taxes that they're delinquent on that you can go out.
Yeah.
Like that. We don't necessarily have thought.
Yeah, right.
Did say the budget bill did pass yesterday and the governor did 61 vetoes and a lot of it was property tax related and there's some things, so I guess we'll learn over the next couple of days, but it sounds like budget wise, there's gonna be some pain to come to county government as far as what money we get from the state in regards to this new budget bill.
Drew, do you have an analysis on that?
It's a good question, Andrew Cooper. I think my read on the stuff at 5, reading through the veto messages, so wouldn't say I've gotten to fully digest, but I think a lot of the things that were removed by the governor kind of take us back to status quo. And I don't know, just in terms of property tax policy. And I don't know if that was impacted by the fact that it came out, do you remember it was yesterday or Monday that the citizen-led initiative to potentially put the property tax item on the ballot is now targeting 2026. So I think there's a feeling among some members of the legislature that they have a little bit more time now to come up with a fix or solution or whatever the set of solutions is going to be. But certainly I think that's given what we veto, that's going to be the biggest topic that the legislature is going to have to work on when they come back in the fall.
Yeah. Well, we know that there needs to be some form of reform, property tax reform. Just don't know how deep, and to suggest that there shouldn't be any property taxes at all, which are trying to push that initiative. And we understand what, our state rep, David Thomas is doing, trying to curb that idea that, you can't just have this initiative where you abolish all property taxes. I mean, it's just, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
So I guess the idea was curb that with this bill and, at least put something out there that, helps the homeowner. I think really, looking at it, our homesteading should be calculated differently. I think that, you could model this after even, I've had an opportunity to know how some of the property taxes work in Florida. Governor DeSantis has got a very good way of, property tax. You have even widow credits, where if you have a widowed, and you lost that additional income, or you could get a credit, as a widower. Their homesteading is calculated differently. There's no, hey, you can make this much or that much. It's, listen, you're homesteaded. And there's other things that are included in that too, that, from the perspective of knowing what the valuations, of course, they have, which is different here, they have a very healthy bed tax.
Yeah.
And that bed tax helps those funds. I mean, you can't compare, Warren, Ohio to Daytona Beach, Florida. I mean, I got this, I mean, they have those you know, those things in place to where they can compensate. So, but like you were talking, Mike, in our case, it would be stimulating economic development to bring in those additional dollars. And this is what you're all about.
Yeah, our belief, I'll take a step back, we were talking about income taxes this morning, because obviously in the operating budget, we state cut income taxes flat rate down to 2.75%. And Florida, for instance, doesn't have it.
Yeah.
They utilize other ways to tax their residents. And Florida does have a booming population. It's been growing. Real estate development is occurring successfully down there. One of the things that Florida has, well, two of the things Florida has that Ohio doesn't, is obviously a tropical climate. The second is booming tourism industry, and that tax, I think, is significantly down.
Yeah.
And sales tax. Foreign buyers not coming in and buying.
Right, right.
But our belief is that with sustainable economic development, you're able to build wealth for the community, the county at large. Because Jobs Ohio and Lake River's approach is to incent and attract new money in. Jobs Ohio has 10 sectors that they focus on. But the way I like to dumb this down for my own well-being is it's all about new money, not cyclical money. If the business that requires the local society, the local economy to sustain it, it's not for us to incentivize it, try to attract it. If the product or service that's made is created here and sold elsewhere, we want it. That's my dumbed it down. That's not necessarily the actual Jobs Ohio approach. But that's qualifier. The reason I've got Drew here today is because you wanted me to face to face. He's the head of Jobs Ohio's Government Affairs Division. I try to bring him into town every 3, 4, 6 months, something like that. And I have him in town this morning. We brought him to the Regional Chambers Government Affairs Council. We then met with the Columbia County Commissioners, and then we're ending our day with you.
Oh, nice. Appreciate it. Very nice to have.
Yeah. What my hope is that Drew can kind of give a little bit of a Jobs Ohio, Lake River 101, maybe brief 5 minutes. And then if you're willing, kind of unfold a little bit where Jobs Ohio's hoping to go with its incentives and work in the future. But before we do that, I do want to note that we're not over the goal line yet with our biggest project that we've landed in history. I know we're celebrating it. It's coming. We still have 2 positive votes on the jet to get through. And I think once we do that, we can officially celebrate biggest project that I think that we've seen collectively and collaboratively in what I would say Lake River's history, certainly Lake River's history. We probably go far beyond that. And there's more coming. There's more coming.
Is it incorporating our area? Or is it this area?
No, you guys know about it. We've been talking about Kimberly Clark publicly.
Oh, yes,
We gotta get through 2 jets. We still have 2 positive votes on that jet.
Who's that with? Warren,
City of Warren voted yes. We need Howland Township and Warren Township to cast their votes.
I thought they were for it.
Yeah, I thought
They are.
Nick Coggins, Planning Commission. So they're in favor of it. There's some I's that need to be dotted, some T's that need to be crossed. So right now they're procedural. One of the things that they're waiting on is for this jet to go through as a township with trustees. They need a unanimous vote across the board. So there's some ink that needs to be cleared up. Whereas the city of Warren, they just needed the majority. So they took it to their council, got the majority, in order for unanimous vote between Warren and Howland. There's just some, clerical language that they need to wrap up. Part of it being on the portion of the company to make sure that they review and their legal counsel is comfortable with the things that the townships and the city are presenting. Last thing we want to do is have all parties vote for it and the company's legal counsel not comfortable. So they are putting on a pause for legal counsel to review and make sure they're comfortable and make sure that there are no changes before they get their unanimous vote. Because if we did vote and establish it and then they have a problem, well, now we got issues and we might have to change it. We have to revote. It's easier this way to just wait and make sure everything's finalized and cleaned up.
It's the appropriate.
But in short answer, yes, they are, everybody's in favor of it. They've been very thankful for the company coming in. They've worked very well with the company so far, and all the trustees and the representatives from the municipality have been very accommodating with the company and all work very well together. So it's been a great long coming, but great project to work with, and everybody's been happy with most of the outcomes.
So the road from Pine to 45, that's is that in the works?
Yeah, but you mean with the all Ohio Futures Fund investment to rebuild that new access road, close down the current access road? Yeah. It'll go. Part of that, Jed, is because that all Ohio Futures Fund, portion of it is grant, and a portion of it is loan. And so part of the reason for the JED is to be able to allow the Port Authority to receive the AOFF funding, to be able to close the gap with one, should it not end up as forgiven. Yeah.
Couple little hurdles that were close to Pine Avenue also, but that's
us, isn't it? Or is that-
the engineer right now coming up with alternate routes and.
Yeah.
And his stuff that he's gonna do a study there for the traffic.
Did want to have meetings individually with the commissioners too. He did want to have meetings individually with the commissioners. The engineer, to discuss some of the things prior to that happening, Commissioner.
He doesn't want me together, get separate with.
Well, he'd rather do it so it's not a public. I don't think so. Commissioner, unless he just met with one.
If you were,
I think it's an
if
educational.
it's educational,
Yeah.
it is okay.
Yeah.
As long as you are not discussing and making
Yeah.
outside of a public
Right.
meeting.
So
So
we meet with all
you
of
can
us.
receive information, you just cannot discuss or make any
Won't make
decisions.
decisions.
Right.
Right.
Hence
Anyway,
educationally,
Yeah,
Drew, would
that's
you
great.
mind?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's great to meet you. I think this is the first time.
You too,
meeting
Drew.
from the review, so appreciate the time. As Mike mentioned, my name is Drew Cooper. I lead the government affairs team at Jobs Ohio. Little of my background, I'm from Central Ohio originally. That's where I grew up, went to Ohio State, lived in Columbus with my wife. We have, Mike and I are something in common, we both have twin boys.
Oh.
We are having a third in August, so.
You go to Twinsburg?
We haven't gone yet. Have you?
Yeah, you're gonna have to go.
I keep hearing that it's like kind of surreal.
It is really different.
And I feel like we.
I don't have twins, I just know from my nieces. And then you see twins marry twins, same family.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know about that. That's crazy.
That's a lot for me. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't wanna
No.
just to get into
Totally
that.
fine. I feel like we joined a little fraternity of other. companies,
Yeah.
So it's been. My background, I worked in the state legislature. I was a staffer for about 7 years. Yep, I'm still recovering from that experience. Worked for a couple different speakers, a couple different members of the legislature, and came to Jobs Ohio in January 21. So it's been about 4.5 years at jail for me. To elaborate on Mike's point, Jobs Ohio is one of those organizations, and I'm finding as I spending time in this part of the state that, given the way that the Jobs Ohio map was previously laid out, we didn't have as much engagement up here as we should have. And so Mike's doing a great job and the Lake River team's doing a great job. I'm sure that there's strong connectivity with
4 counties that they cover into the Jobs Ohio model. So Jobs Ohio, for a lot of folks, is one of those organizations people have heard of, maybe know a little bit about, but aren't super familiar with. So just very high level. We are the state's private economic development organization. We were created back in 2011 by legislature and by Governor Kasich at the time to take over the responsibilities that previously been held by a state agency doing this work of economic development for the state. Economic development, we run around the table and try to define what that phrase means. We probably get a bunch of different answers, but for us, it really fundamentally boils down to incentivizing companies who are here in the state, urging them to grow and expand here as opposed to somewhere else. Attracting, as Mike said, investments to Ohio from businesses that aren't currently here and operating by articulating to them the value proposition of locating here, like we've done with Kimberly-Clark. And then also by working with communities as they think strategically about how they want to grow, where in their communities they want to grow, and then sharing our expertise and resources to help them achieve that vision of success. So created in 2011 with that goal in mind. 2013, the legislature gave us the ability to go out to the bond markets. We raised about $1.4 billion and bought the state's liquor business from the state. We now own and operate that business, and it funds everything that we do as an organization. Yeah. So rather than using tax dollars or requiring an appropriation from the legislature every 2 years, we own and operate that business. We've applied private sector management principles to that business. It now is extremely profitable, and we take the profits from that business and reinvest it into our programs and incentives that we offer the companies.
So just to talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
If I'm Jack Daniels company.
Yep.
And I want to sell my product in Ohio.
Yep.
I've got to go through you. You put in the state liquor stores.
Yep.
And then they take a cut of the profits off of my product to fund economic development.
That's exactly right. So Ohio, after prohibition was repealed, the government at the time had the ability to decide whether we wanted to be a control state or not. I think there's 17 control states around the country where the state government has the sole authority to sell liquor as defined in Ohio as anything 42 proof and above, right? Ohio is a control state. And so effectively how it works is, we have a monopoly on the sale of liquor in Ohio. So we develop relationships with the producers, in your instance, Jack Daniels. There's a statutory markup that the law dictates that we're allowed to apply to a bottle of bourbon or whiskey or whatever the product is. And so, the producers will sell it to us at a price. Their profit is derived from whatever their margins are. We mark it up based on what the statute says that we're able to mark it up for. And then we have relationships with the liquor store owners that have, liquor agencies and sell our product on consignment. They never actually take possession of it. If it's on the shelf, it's still ours. It's on consignment. And then when the consumer purchases it, they do pay a tax. You pay a sales tax. That goes right back to the state. We don't take any of that. It's truly just the profit that we derive from operating the business in an effective way that funds what we do. So it's very unique.
So when people say you can't get that here in Ohio, it's because those people haven't contracted probably with Ohio to sell that flavor of Crown Royal or whatever it is.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. And I could talk about this for a long time because I think it's really cool. But producers, particularly producers are any bourbon drinkers? Okay. So there's some types of bourbon that are fairly sought after. So I'll just use Weller. People love Weller. It's become more. You compare from today, looking back 5 years ago, Weller, especially, they have a special reserve. It's like $30 or so a bottle. It's just I hear it heard from other people. I think a little about this too. That used to be very hard to come by in the state, and it was because Sazerac, which produces Weller, viewed Ohio as a poorly run state in terms of liquor. When the state government ran the liquor business, we had a lot of issues with bottles, particularly of the highly sought after stuff, would just walk out the back door of the liquor warehouse. There was a high loss rate because the warehouse operation was not really run particularly effectively. And so the viewpoint of Ohio under the old regime pre-Jobs Ohio was, well, we want our product to get into the hands of the consumer, not Joe down at the warehouse who, sells it out the back door to his buddies. So we are constantly building and strengthening our relationships with producers to demonstrate to them that Ohio has a strong market for their product and that we should be given the opportunity to sell it. Because a lot of times it's, for some instances, we're making a business decision, hey, we don't think this product is going to sell in the state for a variety of reasons. But in many cases, particularly for the products that are sought after, the producers kind of get to dictate where in the country they're going to sell it. But we're always asking for more of those products because that's what consumers want. So it's an interesting model. It's the only model like it in the country. Other states have privatized their economic development organizations, but no one's been able to kind of crack the code of finding a sustainable funding source and having that private structure.
So all the money that you accumulate through the sales of liquor, is that strictly a loan, or is those, do you allocate the money as grants, or is it strictly loans?
Yeah, so when we, once you net out our operating expenses and you remove the funds that through a profit sharing agreement you send back to the state, we have about $250 million on an annual basis to fund our organization. And so we have a variety of different types of incentives that we can offer to companies in exchange for their commitments of creating jobs or making investments in the state. One of our incentives is called our economic development grant. That is just a straight grant to a company that they receive as a component of an incentive offer. We have a loan program that we can offer to companies that's a couple percentage points below what they could get from a commercial lender, which can be popular or attractive to a company maybe that's making a high CapEx investment. But we have a variety of other programs and initiatives that are all funded through the profits we derive from the liquor business.
And is any of that government able to apply for any of that, or is it strictly businesses?
So with the exception maybe of our
Vibrant community.
Yeah, with the exception of our Vibrant Communities program, which have we done any up here yet?
Right. Your rebate program we utilized.
Oh, good. Okay, so that one too.
So government can apply for a rebate, the rebate program, which helps with brownfield, either studies or cleanup. The study you can get out an end user, but the cleanup you generally need an end user, and that's generally paired as a part grant, part loan. But there are programs that we utilize locally from Jobs Ohio, rebate being one of them.
We've got a couple of projects teed up. Westbourne Spec Development Project utilized OSIP and RIP.
Yeah.
It's Lake to River's job, primary job, to try and win as much of that incentive money back to the four counties. It's our primary focus, is to bring projects to Jobs Ohio for them to say, yes, this is good, let's incentivize this, either an expansion here locally or a company that we're attracting.
Yeah, that's a really good example. So we're a statewide organization, but we divide the state into 7 regions. In each of those regions, we have an entity that is designated as our Jobs Ohio network partner for that region. And they act more or less as Jobs Ohio's boots on the ground for the counties that they cover. There was a decision made when we were created that, or there was a feeling that, this organization sitting in Columbus, it's probably going to be difficult for them to, if they were just to exist on their own, push out kind of a one-size-fits-all strategy in economic development. It's going to miss the mark because the economy of the Mahoning Valley is very different from the economy of Toledo or the economy of Athens or the economy of Dayton. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a strong partnership with entities at the regional level who had relationships and partnerships with entities at the local level, county, city levels of economic development apparatus. And so for the first 13 years of our existence, there were 6 regions. But in 2024, we made the decision to create the 7th region, which is the Lake to River region, which now covers Ashtabula, Mahoning, Trumbull, and Columbia counties, and acts again as Jobs Ohio's representative in those 4 counties. So when we have an opportunity that comes into us, maybe a company that's looking to make an investment and they say, hey, we're interested in Ohio, tell us about the different parts of your state. Typically, the first thing we do is we'll ask them what type of, investment they're looking to make, what type of workforce they need, type of site that they're looking for. And then we work to try to articulate to them the pros and cons of the different regions of Ohio. And often that's done in partnership with our regional partners, who obviously are better suited to sell their region than we could ever be as a state. So that's kind of how the different pieces and parts all work together. Kimberly Clark is a great case study of how the state, the region, and the local level were all able to work together to articulate the attractiveness of this area of the state to a large company that's going to be making an exciting investment. So that's kind of the structure. It's how it all works. Happy to answer any questions if you have any about that. Happy to talk about some of the trends that we're seeing, some things that we think Ohio can capitalized on over the next several years. But I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask Drew, and of course, we work with my Port Authority, our planning commission. What do you see? And of course, Mike can answer this, I'm sure too. What do you see moving on the state level into the Mahoning Valley? Do you see some growth coming more growth starting to come this way? Even though we haven't seen, maybe there's certain things that are out there that we haven't seen yet, but would it be safe to say that you're seeing, Mike, Drew, start to come our way? We've been in this area has been recessed for forever, ever since the steel mills and then Lordstown pulls out. What do you think the driver is on a state level that would be attracting these businesses to our area?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mike, do you want to offer perspective? I'm happy to fill.
I can start if you
Yeah.
prefer. So I'm gonna steal Senator Marino's line, which I'm gonna say he stole from me. Because I've been saying for a while now that I think a year ago when we launched Lake to River, I think we put out the IPO, the initial public offering of the stock for these 4 counties. And you're an investor in the stock market, the IPO is a big deal. It's usually, if the company's good, it's the cheapest you're ever going to get that stock. Right. And so I believe that about a year ago, that was the cheapest, least expensive that you were going to be able to buy in the Lake to River region. Senator Marino said on the recent fly-in, if the Mahoning Valley were a stock, I would be bullish on that stock price increase. I believe he's right about that. So if you take process of economic development and you drill it down to the actual in the weeds understanding, there's 2 things that you need first. You need sites and you need infrastructure. You need a site. You need a place where a business that's already here can locally expand into, or a business that we're working to attract can land. That's why Kimberly Clark worked so well at that particular property. That was the right site at the right time, introduced to the right people, taken in care by the right people at the Port Authority. Due diligence was done appropriately. The cleanup was done appropriately. It's the right site at the right time. So you need sites. The Lake River region has a lot of greenfields that we're working to bring infrastructure to. Sites and infrastructure are your product you're able to sell. When we get leads from Jobs Ohio, they look a lot different from what we thought those leads would look like in the past. They're light manufacturing, fulfillment and warehousing, data centers, they're tech companies. They look a lot different. The attention that's on us is different. So we either get the lead from the state or we generate it ourselves. The way we generate it is through our BRE program that we do in conjunction with that. We visit 200 companies a year in the market. We either sign NDAs with them or we don't. They trust the system well enough. We take in real understanding of what their forecast looks like and what their expansion plans are. They tell us within 5 years we're going to hopefully be adding on 20 people and 2 lines. We're gonna position to sell. We're going to try and just stay the same and grow with CPI. Whatever that is, they give us that information, we take that, we aggregate that data, put it into our database. And then we know where to go back to them, say, hey, that expansion that you were talking about 2 years ago. Are you ready for it? How can we help you get over the edge for it? And that VRE program generates about 80% of the work that we do, just expansion. Stuff that comes in from Jobs Ohio, that's attraction work. That's a new company in the market. Right now, we got 20 projects in the pipeline. 5 of them are attraction, the other 15 are expansion. So on the attraction side, we're seeing a lot cleaner, we're seeing a lot more technical, still manufacturing and fulfillment for the most part, but that's what we do well. But if we don't have the site and we don't have the infrastructure to that site, we don't have a way to raise our hand and say, yeah, we've got what you're looking for. And we can be competitive to try and attract you into this market. Sites and infrastructure is step number 1. Step number 2 is workforce. Everybody talks about having a healthy workforce. It's one thing to be able to win the project here that's going to create 100 jobs, but if you don't have 100 new people to come into that job, you're either pulling from another company or you're unable to satisfy that workforce need. So sites, infrastructure, people. And then the last part is on the retention side. How does that business stay here and thrive? How do they make sure that they're producing as best of a product as possible, as efficiently as possible, to keep their workforce happy? And to keep their workforce happy with quality play. Right? You've got to have the parks, you've got to have arts and culture, you've got to have outdoor recreation, you've got to have the release. So that balance, I talk about this a lot. Balance of jobs, people, quality of life. Those 3 buckets of those 3 variables need to move in tandem to have a sustainable economy. Jobs represents capital investment, right? Business attraction, business expansion, site development, in building the things that are necessary to help business win. People as a workforce, educating the right people so that they're able to, we're educating for the jobs that we see that are coming in the future. And then quality of life is everything else. It's infrastructure, it's healthcare, it's housing, it's arts, it's culture. All 3 of those variables have to move together in tandem in order for us to win. It's a long way of not answering your question, but to answer it, it's changing.
So how are we gonna fill that workforce need?
Can
we say it?
With them having jobs, so.
I mean, how, where are we gonna
All
get
right.
bodies from?
So, you do it. Can you say it?
Sure.
How what is this? What's on the record? What does this record look like? Are people watching this?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we have an incentive that we're gonna be rolling out later this month. That will help to provide a financial incentive to companies who are willing to bring workforce from out of the state to Ohio. We're gonna call it our Jobs Ohio Relocation Incentive. I think we talked about it at a high level in our last board meeting, which is public. So the details, more to come on how companies can take advantage of that. But we've heard from our clients, Mike alluded to this phenomenon of poaching by manufacturing firms in town. And, one of them raises their hourly rate by $1 an hour, steal people from other employers. And that's not really sustainable. It doesn't create an environment that's conducive to shared growth. So our goal with this program is to help, again, encourage companies. Companies will look out of the state for C-level leadership, right? That's more common. But if you're looking to fill a technician role at your manufacturing operation, our goal is with this program to encourage those businesses to be intentional about trying to find somebody from PA, incentivizing them to move to Ohio, because ultimately we have to do both regionally and statewide. We've got to grow the overall pool. In addition to getting people trained up, that's an important piece of it too. But We've also lost congressional seats the last 2 cycles, and we want to see that trend reverse our population, because that will help address the workforce shortages. So more to come on that front, but we're trying to do our part.
We also have Find Your Ohio program that I like a lot. It's a very unique program that Jobs Ohio operates that is a database of two variables. The first is specific jobs within companies that are essentially posting their opportunities with it. It's kind of a job, but better. The other variable that's introduced into the equation is people who once had a connection to Ohio that are now living out of state. And Jobs Ohio uses very targeted digital marketing to find these people. They utilize IP addresses, whether they're watching Ohio news, and they find them that are outside of the state. They sign into this database and they put in their information on their resume, and there's a connection made. So it's a connection to a person who's got a particular skill set and jobs that require a particular skill set. And it wins these people back into Ohio. We have a healthcare company in town that just hired 4 RNs out of this particular program and relocated 4 families back into Ohio from this, which is, obviously you guys know quite a bit about the medical providing industry now in this region, but RNs are very hard to come by these days. It was a wage war for nurses. And what I understand is that Lake to River is one of the top contributors for referrals into this Find Your Ohio program. So doing our part to try and make sure that local companies are getting into this system and that we're trying to attract people who want
We're unique here because Geauga County, if they steal from their neighbor, they're stealing from another Ohio company.
Right.
Which doesn't benefit you.
Right.
From one region to another.
Right.
Lake to River, we can steal from Pennsylvania.
Right.
And maybe been stealing from us for years between Warner Ladder Company and Wheatland Tube and all these other businesses, people that live here and work in PA. So I guess part of our goal should be to steal them back this way.
Absolutely.
That was one of the major selling points to stand up Lake to River was this border economy that we recognize as vital. There's a border economy with Pennsylvania for most of the counties, all of the counties, but then Columbiana County shares a border with West Virginia down in Liverpool. There's a lot of people that work across the state lines, live in one, work in the other. I mean, Brookfield is not very far away from Hermitage, right?
Right.
I live in Mahoning County, Ohio. It takes me about 5 minutes to get to. And that border economy was something that we thought we would be able to focus on and capitalize on and trying to attract residents into these 4 counties and ultimately win projects in these. I know this is just qualitative opinion, but I think you can see the trend with what we've done just over the last year as a community pulling together, especially how Trumbull County pulled together and rallied around Kimberly Clark. I think there's a lot more of that to come. I really do believe that we're in the beginning stages of the turnaround for this region.
And to get back to your question, I mean, I think there's some assets that are unique. When you're looking at Ohio versus some of our competitors, there are advantages. But there's advantages even within Ohio, I think that one of them Mike talked about it is cost of living.
Yeah.
That's I think very attractive, especially I live in Columbus, I mentioned. It's a lot more expensive to go out to dinner or go to certain types of entertainment, and folks care about that, and companies are increasingly doing more due diligence to understand, especially if they're a new entrant to a marketplace, understand the type of the quality of life that their workforce is going to have. I also think energy infrastructure is a huge advantage in this part of the state in particular. Every project, I think, if you were to look at just on average the amount of energy that's required to, meet their needs, it's a hockey stick. And so the fact that you all have sites that are legacy manufacturing have the infrastructure that's required to meet the needs, that's a really unique advantage too. That you don't see in other parts of the state. Plus, cost of attractive property is much lower here than in Columbus, where you're paying, amounts per acre that would have made you think, 15 years ago. So I think Ohio is well positioned, but to your question, there's attributes that the Valley has that Lake River's working really hard and doing a really good job of marketing that I think are going to help the population scale in your direction. Time will tell, but there's, as you said, the groundwork is being laid.
Are you involved in housing at all?
So we don't have any programs that provide direct incentives to housing creation. Where we have sought to be a part of the housing solution, if you will, is helping to inform the requirements in terms of where we see growth happening, and where, what parts of the state are going to need housing, not just now, but 5-10 years down the road. So we don't have
If you had a large developer interested in doing a development, would you work with them?
So I think there are things that we would do, and there are things that our regional partners would do to help make that process easier, perhaps for them. Would we incent that activity directly? Jobs Ohio would not, but I'm sure you were following, there were a couple new programs initiated in the state operating budget. One of them is the Residential Economic Development District program, which is brand new, that would, and happy to share more information about this. Is this something you guys are tracking all in the budget? Okay. So, short version is in communities within proximity to major economic development projects, which is defined in the bill as an investment of over $700 million or over 700 employees. If communities in proximity to those economic development projects enact certain pro-housing policies, they're eligible for grant dollars from the state to utilize to support housing development. So that could be expansion of infrastructure to lower the cost for a developer. They're separate from that program. There's also $100 million in the budget for a revolving loan program to support housing development. So I think the state broadly is thinking more creatively about what can be done to address housing needs, but our primary role would be helping to connect with other partners who that's their focus.
Commissioners, when we gave $1 million to Valley Vision 2050, and what that was a conglomeration of, at the time, Jobs Ohio. There was no Lake to River, Eastgate, Chamber of Commerce, all the other Valley partners. The governor, they used part of our $1 million, 200,000 of it from us, 200,000 from owning, to make seed money, 400,000 to create this new Lake to River district. So housing may not be Lake to Rivers, but when we look at the whole big picture of Valley Vision, the Chamber of Commerce is working on housing, so is Eastgate. And then collectively, the Valley Vision Committee, of which we've all attended, they're addressing it with their own entities. So, but none of this would have been possible without that startup money that we had. When the governor saw that they secured 400,000 from both counties or 2 counties, that's when he gave the green light to go ahead and create the 7th Jobs Ohio district, which means now we're not competing against Cuyahoga County, Geauga, and some of the other, 19 counties or so. Mm-hmm. Now we got our own 4 that are competing against 6 districts, instead of us competing against 19 just within our own district. So that's why we're seeing him here now, and all the progress we made with these guys over the last year. And that's a big major change we never had before. We were always the black sheep of the 19 counties, and now we're the golden child of the 4.
Yeah, Commissioner Malloy's right. And if we take this back to that balance, jobs, people, and quality of life, our focus in that is jobs. We're here to drive capital investment, site development, and attract businesses into the market that don't currently operate here. and help businesses that are here expand so that they stay. We are solely focused on the jobs part of that equation, right? The business growth. It's up to other partners who are focused on community development and other areas of economic development. I'm going to say it, to keep up, right? To make sure that the infrastructure is there, that the housing stock follows the demand at an appropriate level. Because if the other two get out front, if we have more people than jobs, if we have more houses than people and jobs, we've got a supply side issue that we don't want, right? We're lowering value. We're lowering the value of the wage because there's more people. Or we're lowering the value of property because there's more houses, there's more supply than the demand. So if we keep out front and we put the pressure from a demand perspective and everything else follows, then that's the healthiest imbalance in this equation. Obviously, if everything is even killed across the board, you've got this balanced effort that moves appropriately. But the healthiest imbalance is if jobs are a little bit out front, if economic development is driving, because that will create the demand that could increase the supply. One of the reasons why Columbus is growing so fast is because there's people moving to it, because there's good jobs, there's good wages down there, there's companies that are growing. And so a contractor, a speculative housing developer, can build the same house in the Columbus market that they can build here more. And it might cost them relatively the same, probably a little more in Columbus. But they're going to sell that house for significantly more down there. So the margin's bigger, right? The only way we grow that margin is if we create the value and we create the demand. So Jobs Ohio, Lake to River is out front, incentivizing businesses to come into this market and trying to grow business here and helping businesses expand. We've got more demand for people, wages grow, property values grow, supply of the housing stock grows.
And our sales tax comes in higher, and then we have more money in the county to operate.
That's right. And commissioners, to that, with the quality of life portion, the housing portion, that is community development. Community and economic development work hand in hand. That's why our planning commission is your office of economic development. We also handle your community development cooperatives. We handle your subdivision regulations for housing markets going forward. You hear Director Green very outspoken and very passionate about the community development cooperative or Metro Parks, our tourism bureau. These are things that provide that quality of life and that housing strategy. We sit on the Trumbull County Housing Club as well. That's, marrying that community development and economic development is the best way to move forward. And Michael was right, is having the jobs driving and everybody else keeping up is the best imbalance that we could possibly have. That's why we saw such a decline as we built out, because we were the fifth wealthiest city in the United States in 1960. 1979 or 78, we had Black Monday and all the steel mills closed. We had too much housing and too much infrastructure and too much roads, and all the jobs were gone. And we obviously saw over the last 5 decades how that has reduced. Now we are working very hard to get that to turn around with the jobs coming in and the attraction of business. And Michael touched on it a little bit, but I think one of the biggest things we need to push is not only BRE&A, business retention, expansion, attraction. That retention piece is very key, because why would you as a business owner want to come to Trumbull County if I don't take care of Mr. Hernandez, who's existing in the company? What makes you want to be here? We don't treat him well. Why would you want to be here? So that retention and taking care of our existing businesses leads to their expansion projects. Most of these companies have a site in Trumbull County, a site in Mahoning County, maybe a site in Florida or Texas. They can expand in those other places. We want to treat them so well. They want to expand here, and treating them so well and wanting them to expanding here is what's going to help attract those other businesses as well.
Hey guys, I
but squash them. We do have a meeting at 2 at Geauga Trumbull.
We have
And
like
it's-
4 minutes if you wanna wrap it up, I guess, before we probably gotta get on the road.
5 minutes?
Yeah, that's it. about 4 minutes.
I'm sorry, we have a,
No, it's all good.
we have a
This has been
meeting,
great
and,
conversation.
you know, this. Not that
We're
we
good.
like meetings, but
I think
it
we
is
did
what it is, but we appreciate what you do.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate the effort from your area in Columbus and you being, you know, in charge up in that area to look at us and, you know, keep us in mind when, you know what we have here to offer. It's our job to offer the infrastructure. I think we have the lands. I'm just not so sure about how, you know, how potent we are with the infrastructure. So we have to work on that. And then we gotta work on the housing, which is gonna be a major need. We have some other projects we've been hearing about that look like they could expand or open up.
I'd like to
Which
talk
is-
to you guys about that when we can.
Yeah, when we can get that in order. I'm on your page, Michael. I believe we're ripe for expansion here, especially in the Trumbull County area. Mahoning Valley in general, we like to associate ourselves with the commissioners and Mahoning Valley. You know, in general, we are the valley. So anything that works there works for us because they're going back and forth, you know. But anyway, I think we're gonna have to adjourn this meeting because we do have about a 15 or 20 minute ride, I think, right?
About 12 minutes.
Anything from the commissioners? You have anything?
No, thank you.
No?
You're very, you know, your information was valuable. I mean, now we kind of put together and. Good.
Great to have you in town here.
Is there anything you need, I'm still Alex afterward or anything in your department? Jobs wise with them, thank you.
We're waiting on the next announcement.
Very soon, I think.
You've been telling us that for a couple months now and waiting.
Very soon. Yeah, we've heard some things too and had some meetings, but you know, it's Penguin Pete, let's put it that way. That's what Sarah Baraka always told me. Yeah, it's Penguin Pete, but it's not being disclosed.
We are guarded by NDAs and it's very.
Yeah, no, I
difficult.
understand that. Yeah, yeah, right.
But so we talk in code a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr.
But
Chair.
like Bernie Marino says, and he's a smart guy. He created himself from nothing. And if he's willing to bet on us, you know, I'll take that bet.
Yeah.
I'll back that up with my money. If you got a US senator that sees the whole world and the whole country we're competing against, and he's willing to bet on us, we're getting the credit that's due, the credit we know is available out there, and we just got to keep believing and keep the narrative positive and get the naysayers out of the way, or we'll bulldoze them over.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Mr. Bernard.
Yes.
Mr. Malloy.
Yes.
Yes.
Move on.